The following is a rebroadcast of Crossing the Void Radio. Crossing the Void Radio can be heard Wednesday nights from 8 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time here on the Hazy Radio Network. And to learn more about Crossing the Void Radio and stay updated with the stuff we're doing, please join our Facebook fan page, www.facebook.com/crossingthevoidradio. Enjoy the show.
Hazy Radio Network. The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual hosts and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Hazy Radio Network, its affiliates, or sponsors. All shows are independently owned and broadcast for entertainment purposes only.
And welcome everybody to the Hazy Radio Network and Crossing the Void Radio for Wednesday, April 2nd, 2014. Wow. Yes. We weren't here last week. I know, it sucked. And I'm sorry about that. But a lot of stuff went on. We'll be talking about that a little bit tonight. But we're here this week, and that's all that matters. So, of course, my name is Scott Hare. I hope everybody out there is having a great night. Thank you guys for listening in tonight. And, of course, my co-host is, of course, the right-hand man here on Crossing the Void Radio and is the new host of Animazing Radio coming up this Sunday night. The premiere, folks, is this Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Mr. Doug Engler. How you doing, Doug?
I am fantastic. How are you tonight?
I've been better. Still got cold feet? Getting the cold feet yet? Getting the jitters?
I am so amped up for Sunday, it's unbelievable.
So you don't have no jitters?
No jitters whatsoever.
Oh, you're lying so bad. Yeah.
I'm more excited than I am nervous.
Oh yeah, well wait till Sunday comes.
Well, yeah, I've always gotten the most nervous at the last moment. I'm sure at 7:50 I'll be going, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
You'll be, yeah, it's great, and you're gonna see the hours start ticking away, and then you're gonna be in front of the computer, and you're gonna put your headset on. You're gonna go, but
I'll be more nervous than I was talking to Jeremy.
It's nervous. It's nervous because. It is nervous starting. It's weird starting a new show because you're trying to. It's gonna be. It's fun and it's completely frightening at the same time because you're trying to find your niche. Yeah, I mean you've been doing it here for a while. I think it's been almost a year.
Yeah.
So I mean as the co-host now you're the quarterback. Now you're the one like leading it and making sure, and it can be frightening, and it is. I mean, it can be frightening when you're sitting there and you realize that now you're the one who's kind of who's got to keep the show going.
Oh yeah, it's been about 2 years since the last time I actually had my own show. And that was on a different network. The biggest difference between this show and that show is this show, I have a wonderful production team behind me to help keep me motivated, help me out if I get lost along the way, and to encourage me. Where before I did everything on my own.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started this show, I mean, we decided, or Lexi and I decided really quick we couldn't do it on our own. The show was getting, we had a very, very high bar set, and I knew right away there was no way that we were going to be able to do everything. So, so we brought the people in to help us. And, and I always said, and I said to Doug, and I said it to Clarissa, I'm always one where, if you help me, I'm going to do everything to help you guys. And, and it's great because, now Clarissa brought her show over here, you're bringing, you're starting your show. And it's great to see that this one show now here on the network, which I always thank Zeta because she gave a guy who had absolutely no credentials on how to do this stuff, no credentials how to do this stuff, no proof that I could do it. She gave this guy a chance to build a show like this. And what's awesome is now, I get the chance to see, and I've had the chance with Clarissa and now you, to see you guys do your own thing.
Oh, yeah.
So it's great to see it kind of, branching off. And, and now, seeing now seeing your guys' opportunities and your guys' dreams kind of come true to do the things you want to do. And I mean, that's the ultimate thing for me. I mean, it's I mean, when I started the show was never about me.
Oh yeah.
This show was just for me to have fun. And that's just me. I mean, this show is just for me to have fun. The show was never about me or me finding something. But, and on the other hand, it's always about making sure the people who are helping me, get everything. Get everything out of it. And it's great to see, Doug, like I said, Doug have his show, and Clarissa's doing well with Periscope Uncensored over there. Except she doesn't need another co-host now. But she's going through co-hosts like water.
Yeah. And another thing that I want to throw out about this Sunday's show is everybody tune in, because I'm going to have some awesome giveaways. We want to thank Gavin Goska from Home Circle Media and Midnight Syndicate for donating some stuff to give away. Also, Casey Creations, our wonderful sponsor, has a one-of-a-kind drawing that she's done that has been Tia Ballard approved. And will be given away during the show at some point as well.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great night here Sunday. We're getting the lineups back together again. There's a lot of shows that are going to be premiering here in this next week. I'm trying to remember all of them. There's some shows that are going to be changing time slots.
Yeah.
To help with some of the new shows coming in. I know Sharita Starr is coming in. I don't remember the name of her show though. It's a long name. I don't remember the name of her show offhand, but Animazing Radio is going back into our Sunday slots, so we're gonna have some shows back here on Sundays. We're gonna have some shows here on Tuesdays. We got a new show, Paranormal Preview, coming up here on Tuesday nights, which is going to be kind of an interesting show.
I actually just pulled the list up right here of some of the new shows coming on.
Yeah, I know there's a bunch of them. I mean, since last week, I mean, I'm like 5 steps behind right now trying to catch up. So.
We got Justin Aldridge with Paranormal Preview starting next Tuesday. The Broader View will move to Tuesday nights as of April 24th. Ascensions Talk Radio is looking to be coming back as well.
That's right. So is Radio Onyx. I know Radio Onyx is going to be making a comeback here very shortly.
Sharita Starr and Anthony Pico with What's Your Sign? I Have Your Number starts Monday, April 14th. Mm-hmm. So a lot of exciting things going on. So this is a great time to stay tuned into Hazy Radio.
Yeah, and there's more stuff. There's more stuff kind of out there we can't talk about right now because we have no confirmations on them. There's some shows in production. Unfortunately, Chris Kenna couldn't bring the independent music show. Unfortunately, he had to step down. He has some things he's doing, and you never know. But you never know. You may see the 50-foot Love Monkey here again. We're working on. There's a bunch of things we're working on. There are shows in development. I have a few ideas in development. I just don't have hosts for them yet. So there's a lot of stuff that is coming up, and there's a lot of great stuff on the horizon. That if it comes to if it comes to light, if it all comes together, there's going to be some great shows here on the Hazy Radio Network. So I hope you guys will keep listening in and tell your friends about it. That's how, that's the best way to tell people about what we do is word of mouth. Let people know we're here. That's the biggest thing. Let people know we're here. Tell them, hey, there's a bunch of great shows here. There's these guys on Wednesday night who are absolutely freaking insane. You never know what
Wednesday night insane crew. What?
Yeah, you never know what they're going to talk about. And we got. And of course Saturdays, of course we have Earth and Earth One Radio and Dr. Drake and Dr. Truth are awesome. I mean, if you they do a great show over there, and they don't really care what they talk about either, which is kind of really cool. So we're having a lot. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a wild ride next week, seeing all the new premieres coming up. So I hope you guys will listen in tonight. Tonight's going to be no different. We're going to have a fun show tonight. Tonight, folks, A.K. Kuykendall is going to be joining us. If you don't know A.K. Kuykendall, he is a author of fact-based fiction. And what do I mean by that? Well, think of like Dan Brown. If you ever read a Dan Brown novel, if you read, maybe you read like Da Vinci Code, or you read Angels and Demons, or you've seen the movies, it's kind of like, that's a little like fact-based fiction. The fiction is based on actual events and actual locations. AK is a lot like that. So we're going to be talking about some of his books. We're going to be talking about Conspirator's Odyssey, which is a great book I read last week, and he also has a novel on the paranormal, which I can't remember the name of the book right now. Paranormal, what is it? Writer's Block. Yes, the Writer's Block. The Possession. Yeah. So we're going to be talking about those a little bit. If AK's been on actually Periscope Uncensored before, if you caught that show, you can only imagine what we're going to talk about tonight. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and hope you guys will tune in for AK. He'll be coming up in about 45 minutes here on the Hazy Radio Network.
And will we stay on topic with him? Because we tend to stray all over the place with our guests.
Well, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about with him. There's a lot to talk about. I mean, there are things in the news right now we could talk about with him. The whole thing with this Malaysian Airlines jet that still seems to be, we know where it is, but they don't seem to know where it is. There's a lot of weird stuff going on with this jet. I mean, it's like, what the heck happened to this jet? They're saying it's in this area. They're saying they're seeing debris, but nobody's seeing anything. When they actually get there, there's nothing there. So it's and I guess now they're saying they only have about, I think they said they only have like about another, I forget what they said. I think it's another 2 weeks before the batteries on the black boxes run out. And this is in an area, if you don't know, like the area of the world that this plane apparently went down in, it's basically to the south. Yeah, it's basically to the southwest of Australia. In an area that's known for that, in an area that's in an influence. It's basically within the maritime. How do they put it? It's right in the convergence zone of a subtropical climate and the Antarctic climate, which means there's heavy storms, heavy surf, heavy chop. It's a very hard area to actually work in. And they literally may not be able to find anything. And what's really, and it just, I don't know. To me, I don't know. Something just doesn't sound right here. It's like, it seems like they're doing everything, it's, where's the plane? There should be something. You would figure there would be something on the surface, that they would have been able to find by now, which I don't think they have. From what I knew, from what the latest I knew, they hadn't found anything.
I haven't heard anything about it yet either.
Yeah, it's an area, I believe where the water, where I believe the ocean surface is 3 miles down, 2.5, 3 miles down, and it's just, there's still a lot of mystery with this whole thing as far as what happened. Why were they down? Why were they in that location? They were trying to say, now they're trying to say, well, they think maybe there was a sudden loss in cabin pressure, and they tried to turn around, and they were turning around, and they came back, trying to come back to a landing site. Well, if there was a sudden loss in cabin pressure, there are systems. There are systems within that jet, including the oxygen mask and stuff, that the pilots have, so they can make sure they get back. And if it was, and if this loss in cabin pressure was so sudden, how did they make this apparent 180-degree turn? To start coming back. It's like they made the 180-degree turn. Put the autopilot on and then passed out. Something doesn't make,
They know more than what they're saying.
Yeah, something doesn't make sense. I mean, something to me just don't make sense about this whole thing. It doesn't add up.
Who's eating this up? I'm sure it's Dr. Drake and Dr. Truth, because they love this conspiracy stuff.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this isn't conspiracy. Well, I mean, I'm not even going on the realm of conspiracy stuff yet. It's just the fact of, it doesn't make sense. It's, how, if there was such a sudden loss in cabin pressure, I mean, and this has happened before. I mean, there was the, if you guys remember, I don't know, probably over 10 years ago now, there was the golfer who died, within a plane crash, and the same thing happened. And, and in that case, the autopilot in the small Learjet, the autopilot was already on. when this sudden cabin pressure, when this sudden cabin depressurization happened. And, so I mean, so you can understand that where the plane flew for hours. And they weren't getting signal from it. They actually, there was a plane that actually, I believe there was a fighter that a military aircraft that intercepted it, and they looked at it and they saw there was frost and everything on the windows, and they realized, okay, this is not good. But, this is something, you're telling me that the autopilot was not on, and all of a sudden they have this sudden pressure, sudden cabin depressurization, but yet they have the time, but it seems like they have the time to make this basically hard banking turn, and, I don't know how hard it was, but to make this all of a sudden sudden turn, and to start coming back the other way, and then they turn then have time to turn the autopilot on, and then pass out. Something, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, if they have time to make that turn, they have the time to put the masks on, because those masks are right next to them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just, something about this whole thing just, doesn't sit right, and, they owe the families the right to know what the hell happened. And, and if you don't know what the hell happened, just come out and say you don't know what the hell happened. Because the longer you do this, the longer you let this go, the longer you let this go with these, crazy excuses, are crazy theories, the more the conspiracy theories are gonna start really taking hold. The more, there are, I've even read stories that they were abducted by aliens.
I was wondering how long that was gonna take to start up with aliens and ghosts and other paranormal phenomenon being tied in with this.
Oh, it took about 5 minutes.
Oh, I'm sure.
And
another thing that's interesting is, a lot of people were blaming terrorists, but as far as I know, no terrorist group has claimed this yet either.
Well, there's still, then there was this question of these two, of these two passports that were stolen, and you haven't heard a darn thing about that again. You heard it for a while, then all of a sudden they're not talking about it. So it's like, what is, what exactly, what is being held back? And how much of it is being held back? And, very honestly, they probably don't know what the heck happened. And you can understand that because it happened over the water. But, why were they heading towards Antarctica? Why were they heading in the direction that they were? It really doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And how did they get, the other thing a lot of people just have to ask yourself, the other thing you would ask yourself is if they were going, if they were trying, if they were trying to make land, and, and I know I saw Karma Cookie say there was talk that the autopilot was on and the autopilot made the course correction. Well, autopilots, if I remember in those kind of airlines, if you're going to make a course correction with an autopilot, it's still got to be plugged in manually. That turn has to still be plugged in by hand, which means the autopilot can stay on, but it's still got to be the pilot who actually makes that course correction. So you're telling me the pilot made a course correction to go out to open water?
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, why didn't he make just a total 180 and go back? And go straight back. If there was a major, that's all he had to do was declare an emergency, do a 180 and head straight back. He had the fuel. But he didn't do that. He kind of turned. He kind of did he made like 100, I don't know what it was, like a 140-degree turn and started to head in a direction that took him nowhere near land. You're telling me that he didn't know exactly where he was. He was looking for the closest airport and he didn't know where it was?
Makes you wonder what else was going on. Maybe just a theory, could the pilots have passed out for some reason and the jet made the correction on its own unguided?
I don't think an autopilot can do that. The autopilots, you have to plug in. You have to, from what I know about autopilots, which isn't a lot, but I mean, I've talked to pilots, is you have to plug those course corrections in. It's not something that the jet will do on its own. The jet doesn't have an artificial intelligence. Where it can say, oh, something's wrong, I have to turn the plane around. And not only that, but if you're thinking like that, why didn't the plane, if it has like an emergency function, where if it realizes there's a catastrophic failure or something, why didn't the plane do a complete 180 and follow the course that it had taken to that point? And bring it back to the airport. Why would the computer turn it and head it to open water?
That's a mystery I think we will never know.
And I mean, like they said, there's only probably 10 to 14 days before the black box's signal, the batteries on the signals, probably go out. So if it is out there, which I don't think they found any wreckage yet, I haven't heard of anybody, saying that the wreckage was, that the wreckage has been found that they can link to the plane. This could be one of those, unfortunately, this could be one of those mysteries where nobody knows what happened.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is, what happened to 400? I mean, I think this plane can hold 400 people. I think that's what I heard. The 777s can hold 400 people.
Something like that. I know it's pretty high up there.
So yeah, it's there's more to this story coming up, and it's going to be very interesting to see like how the explanations come out and how they change, because they've already changed a lot. It seems like they've already changed a lot. Like I said, they were talking at first they were talking about these 2 passports. And, these 2 passports, these 2 missing passports, these are the key to everything. Now you haven't heard a thing about these 2 passports. So, yeah, so what gives? Now they're focused on the pilots and a sudden cabin depressurization. But somehow they turn the autopilot on. If sudden cabin depressurization happens, like happened, with Payne Stewart, I think was his name, the golfer, with Payne Stewart's plane, it happened that quick. They say they didn't even know what hit him. So that's why I say, how did they have time to do what they did? I realize bigger plane, bigger cabin, but how did they have time to do what they did? So, yeah, so kind of it's an interesting story, that I know a lot of people are watching, and and I think there's going to be more coming out. I think there's going to be more coming out from it than there's going to be more coming out from it than than we've heard yet. And I think there's a lot more to this story. And before it's all said and done, we're probably not going to know it.
Yeah, I'm also wondering about where they start talking about the 2 passports and then didn't talk about it. Is that an oops, we said too much information, we shouldn't have put that part out yet? That's why it's a hush-hush.
I don't know. I don't know. This is kind of like one of those, I'm wondering if something's going to happen like one of those things where, you go back to 9/11 and they're talking about the English news or the Australian news reporter. I think it was an Australian news reporter, which is like, they're talking about Building 7 collapsing and Building 7's behind her. So I mean, is one of these reports going to turn into that? There's a lot more to this story. I mean, a lot of people are saying that, and it kind of feels it. There's a lot more to this story than anybody knows. And so yeah, hopefully for the families' cases, they have closure and they can and they can find something out. There probably ain't going to be any recovery of bodies, but hopefully at least they can find out what happened.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing, is putting some closure to the families of the people on the plane.
Yeah, absolutely. There's got to be some closure for these families, because they're the ones who are really suffering in this whole thing, and hopefully, I know there's U.S. I think there's U.S. Navy ships in the area now, and they're starting to use their sonars. They have a certain sonar, I guess, piece of equipment that can look for black boxes. So, hopefully they do find the black boxes, and they find that the plane went there, did fall there, and there's some kind of closure, for these families, at least to know what happened to their loved ones. Because that's the worst thing, is not knowing. I think that's one of the worst things, is not knowing the fate. What actually happened to your loved ones. And, hopefully that can change here, in the next couple of weeks, and they can find the black boxes. But we got to go to our top of the hour break here, folks. When we come back, we'll keep this thing rolling. If you got any questions or comments about anything we're talking about tonight, give us a call. 860-261-2887 is our phone number. That's 860-261-2887. If you guys are listening out there on TalkStream Live, you may be listening out on Radio B, YourMuse.fm, or any of the other many apps that we come on here on the Hazy Radio Network. Come on into our chat room, hazyradio.com, HEYZradio.com is the place. Look for the word chat in the top header of our homepage. Or look for the pink button that says chat now. And come on in and join us. I want to say hi to Karma Cookie, Moopy Darling, who've been hanging out with me since I've done the pre-show. Kind of playing a little music. Becca's in there. Welcome to Becca. Of course, Lexi, Doug, Clarissa, and myself. We're also in the chat room. We want to see you. We want to hear what you guys are talking about. We want to hear what you guys think about all this stuff. And if you got any questions for our guest tonight, A.K. Kuykendall, it's going to be a fun show. Come on in and join us. It's going to be a fun night. You're listening to Crossing the Void Radio on the Hazy Radio Network, and we'll be right back. 37 minutes after the hour, Crossing the Void Radio on the Hazy Radio Network. Thanks to everybody tonight who's listening in. Our guest tonight, A.K. Kuykendall, comes up at the top of the hour. It's going to be a very, very interesting show tonight. We'll be talking about his book, Conspirator's Odyssey. Great stuff. If you want to learn more about AK, go to his website, thewriterofbooks.com, www.thewriterofbooks.com. So, yeah, a bunch of great stuff going on here. And, last week we weren't around. And, well, there was a reason for that. And the reason was I was in the hospital. Again. And,
you gotta stop doing that.
Yeah, well, trust me, I want to stop doing that. A lot of stuff's going on. There's a lot of stuff. They're figuring out what's going on now, and no, I was basically Tuesday. I was out and about and stopped for gas. It had been it had been a stressful couple days, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden my heart starts beating like you wouldn't believe. It's like I have the biggest adrenaline rush you'd ever seen in your life. So I'm sitting there like, what the hell's going on? And actually drove myself to the hospital, which was, give or take, probably a few miles away. Actually walked into the hospital, and they were checking me out, and they do all the usual things to make sure that it's not anything anything life-threatening, and everything came back normal. And so they pretty much said they wanted to keep me overnight, just to kind of observe me, kind of figure out what was going on. And I was 5 minutes from being discharged. Kid you not, I was 5 minutes from being discharged the next day, after they had done the last round of tests and they saw everything was negative. And it happens again. Heart starts going a mile a minute. Literally, well, I shouldn't say a mile a minute. My heart went up. My heart went up over 160 beats a minute within 30 seconds, and my blood pressure was 220 over 110. Now, I don't know if you guys know blood pressures. I mean, I was an EMT, and I know there's some people who probably do, but 220 over 110 is bad. That's really bad. and they couldn't figure out what was going on. So they said, well, we'll keep you another night. And, kind of talked about me. There's some things I got to do. I got to go for an endoscope and things like that. And a week or I think another week here, or probably less than that. I got to go for that stuff. I got to get all this kind of stuff done, which is just making me nervous as hell because, my whole life I've never had to have a procedure where I had to be knocked out. Which everybody's like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no, I'm not kidding you. I've never had to. I'm just one of those guys that got lucky. I didn't have to. The last time I've ever been knocked out, I was 2 years old. I had to have my tonsils out.
And the only other time was when you got thrown by a ghost.
That too. So they're like, okay, what's going on? And and as quick as it went up, it came back down. Everything was fine. It went back down to where it had been most of the time. And most of the time, I'm on blood pressure medication, because I do have high blood pressure. And if you do have high blood pressure and you're not taking care of it, take frickin' care of it. Okay, it's I don't care what age you are. If you kind of are starting to think that your blood pressure's high, go talk to your doctor. So so they're trying to figure out what's going on, and I'm there all night. I'm perfectly fine all night. Get up the next morning, pretty much okay. But noticing that the same things are starting to happen. I'm starting to get those feelings again. I'm getting, tight in the chest, and so, I talked to the nurses, and yeah. So, so I talked to the nurses. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going on. The doctor starts to think that I may have an anxiety issue. And, there's a lot of stigma when there's something mental, something psychological that's going on. There's a lot of stigma out there. And it's unfair stigma. It is. It's an unfair stigma when there are, psychological things going on. People start thinking, oh, he's not, oh, you're nuts, oh, you're weak, oh, you're this. Well, that's not the case. I mean, everybody who knows me knows that I'm definitely not weak. I'm very strong-willed.
Oh, definitely.
And but they started to think that could be what it is. So what they did is they gave me a milligram of this little thing called Ctvr. This is great stuff, folks. No, I'm kidding. It's not stuff you want to be. It's not stuff you want to be on for a long time. This is one of those things that people want to get on the street and stuff. But they gave me the Ctvr, and I'm pretty much an open book. That's why I'm talking about it. I don't care. Yeah, everything went away. Everything went away. Everything went away to the point my blood pressure never rose higher after I took the Ctvr than 128/78. Never rose any higher than that.
Wow.
And so I come home, went to go see my doctor yesterday, and they have I believe that I have an anxiety. I could have an anxiety disorder. Now, anxiety runs in my family. Anxiety issues run in my family. My great grandmother had them on my mother's side all the way through my mother. They happen. They do tend to be hereditary. So I'm happy that I found it because my mother's got so bad that she was agoraphobic for 2 years. If you don't know what agoraphobic means, she didn't want to leave the house. Every time she walked out the door, she had a panic attack.
Wow, that's got to be a horrible way to live.
If you've never had a panic attack before, they are, and I haven't. I've never had, except for this past week, I've never had a panic attack. I've been nervous. You know, and people can hear it in my voice. I mean, you could probably hear it if you go back and listen to the tapes. I am high strung, you know, because I'm always thinking, I'm always going, I'm always working, my mind is always going. But
I've never had a panic attack, but I know my sister has quite a few times.
They are absolutely frightening to have a panic attack because you don't know what's going on. You know, so, I mean, you know, and I was one of those guys when I was younger. I mean, I will admit, I was one of those guys when I was younger when, you know, my mom would have panic attacks, and I'm like, oh, come on, you can get over them. I was one of those people. You know, now at 37, I'm the one having the panic attacks. And a lot of it's over the acid reflux issues because you just don't know what's going on. I mean, it comes up into your chest, and when I have these attacks, I mean, they hit hard. So you really don't know what's going on. So it gets in your mind, and because I have them, I have enough medical knowledge just to scare the crap out of myself. You know, being that I was an EMT, you know, that this stuff goes on. But the problem is that because I'm so strong-willed and I'm so ego, you know, I don't want to say ego, I have an ego, but you know, everybody's got an ego. But I'm so prideful, I never went to anybody. I never talked to anybody. Didn't have the insurance, actually, 2 years ago to go do that. I have the medical insurance now. So for 2 years, I was dealing with this. And, of course, there's the problem at home. You know, problems, of course, everybody has problems at home. There's stressors at home. So, you know, and just recently I have changed my diet radically, where I've cut out all sugars, all carbs, most red meat. I'm basically eating 900 to 1,000 calories a day from what I used to be. And I've dropped in, and because of it, I've dropped 2 pant sizes in 2 months. No, 3 months, excuse me. So there's all that kind of stuff too. So, you know, and there's a lot of mental issues behind that from all the bullying and everything like that. So everything kind of just caught up to me, and I suffered. It was an anxiety attack. It's most likely what it was. There may have been a medication that was exacerbating it, which I'm going to deal with that tomorrow. Because the doctor I had, and I got nothing against the person, I'm not going to say who it is, but the doctor I had came out and said, it can't possibly be this. Can't possibly. The only thing you can do is this minor thing. Couldn't hurt you. Well, I take the thing again. It's the only thing I added last night to the stuff I had been taking. And I wake up and I have the same exact symptoms as before I went into the hospital. When I was in the hospital, I was off them. I was off this particular thing. So to say I'm pissed off is a light term. So I'm going to take care of that doctor tomorrow. But anyways, going back to what I was talking about. Yeah, I mean, you know, when you think about it and you look into it, many people out there suffer from anxiety issues. There are so many people out in the population who suffer from anxiety issues. There are so many people who have to take something, which right now I am. You know, they have prescribed anxiety medications for me. Because it's gotten that bad. You know, and part of it was my fault that I let it get that bad. But it's something that I had to take care of, and you know, I finally came to the point, and it's probably one of the hardest points to come to, where you have to realize you can't do it on your own. You know, you're not going to beat this on your own, and you're not going to be able to find ways to manage it on your own. You need help. And you know, I had a follow-up with my doctor yesterday, my primary doctor, and you know, and he was very happy that I came to him and actually asked for help, because most of the time what happens is it's found out too late, and either the person does something to themselves or does something to somebody else, acts out. You know, and that was the first thing that he told me is, you know, well, you realized, you know, you realize that you need help. You need help to manage this. You need help to cope with it. And you came in to do that. A lot of people don't like doing that because it makes you, you know, and I mean, you know, Doug can probably vouch for this, especially in males, because we are
egocentric.
Yeah. We are the dominant of the species. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Only when the women in our lives aren't around.
Yeah, I know. I don't have one of those either, so I guess I am the dominant. So.
Yeah.
But we are definitely, you know, the better of the two species. Yeah, no, yeah.
In our own minds,
guys. If you truly think that, man, you got a lot to learn. No, but you know, I went to my doctor and I asked for help because, and it's something that I realized is nothing to be embarrassed about. You know, a lot of people have, especially like I said, with these kind of issues, a lot of people won't do anything. You know, they're embarrassed to. But the problem is if you don't take care of it now, it could turn into something else. You know, and I keep things in anyways. I'm that type person where most of the time I keep things in. You know, I don't. You know, I'm getting better at that. You know, 2 years ago, you would have never heard me talking about this on the air.
Yeah, I'm just as bad. You know, I keep a lot of stuff to myself. I get yelled at constantly for doing stuff like that from, you know, Clarissa and Lexi and everybody. Like, you know, we're here for you to rely on us, but I always seem to keep most of the issues to myself and try to put myself out there for everyone else and not rely on others as much as I should usually.
Yeah, you know, and, you know, you can't do everything on your own, and it is. I mean, you know, a lot of people look at people who have these, you know, who have some kind of psychological disorder as weak or anything like that. You'd be surprised how many people are suffering from something. And if you're suffering from it too, if somebody out there is listening, and you're suffering, you know, you're kind of suffering from it too, you know, go out and, you know, go on the computer, research it. Research the signs and symptoms. When I looked at anxiety disorders, I kid you not, I had 95% of the symptoms. 95% of the symptoms of it. So, you know, if you think something's wrong, don't be afraid to ask for help. A lot of people aren't. I think that's what I'm trying to get to is, you know, if, you know, I asked for help, you know, and I'm putting it out there that this is out there. Yeah, you know, I am going to be talking to somebody. I'm going to be doing some counseling to help me kind of overcome some of this stuff. And, you know, and it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. You know, is it going to affect the show? No, I don't expect it to. I got to follow up, of course, do some other things. I got to follow up with a cardiologist because, you know, it's just to make sure everything is okay. And everything has come up okay, you know, but you just got to make sure. But, yeah, I mean, if there's a lot on your plate and you know what, you're realizing it's affecting you more than you think, don't be afraid. You know, don't be afraid to go out there and ask. Don't be afraid to ask your doctor. Don't be afraid to talk to somebody who may be able to tell you if you got to go to a doctor or not. You know,
we all suffer from something. It's just,
yeah, you know, it's, you know, and if you're not careful, it'll truly, you know, and what amazed me, and I didn't even, you know, I never even thought about this is, you know, until I started to experience it now and I started to realize it, is that how crippling it is. And I mean, it's crippling. Absolutely, it'll stop you dead in your tracks. Where you don't want to do anything. I mean, you're afraid to do anything, and that's no way to live. That's absolutely no way to live. You know, and I know people who suffer from, you know, I'm not going to name names, but I know people who suffer from this kind of stuff, and I have a lot more. I don't know what the right word is. I have a lot more
respect for what they're going through?
Probably the respect. I have a lot more, you know, I have a lot more respect for, you know, for the stuff that they deal with. I have a lot more, I don't know if sympathy is the right word. I don't think that's not the right word. It's not, you know, it keeps coming up,
understanding.
I truly have more of an understanding for the people that I know, you know, who are having dealing with things like this and even further. You know, even other type psychological issues. You know, and sometimes you don't have the compassion. Thank you, Clarissa. Sometimes, you know, you don't have the compassion for people for these things until you actually experience it yourself. And really, the reason for that is you can't understand it. You know, you really don't. You can't fully understand why there are certain days where people just shut down and they don't really want to talk to anybody. They don't want to really deal with anything.
One of those days is coming up for me.
Yeah, Sunday. Wait.
No, Friday.
Friday. Oh. Why? What's going on Friday?
Nothing.
Nothing? Okay.
Clarissa's show's going on Friday.
Oh, yeah. You know, and it's, yeah, I mean, you really can't, you know, sometimes you have to experience things to be able to relate better. And, you know, even though, I had an understanding before and I was compassionate about it before, it's completely different now that I know that I'm dealing with it. And is it something that's going to follow me through the rest of my life? Yeah. Do I have to let it win? No. Absolutely not, and I'm not going to. You know, I'm already taking steps to deal with it. I'm going to be taking more steps to deal with it. So, yeah. So, you know, it's, you know, I just figured I'd put that out there, you know, and just, you know, because, I don't know, feels good to talk about it, I guess. You know, and just, you know, the only thing I could say is, I mean, if you guys have any issues out there, whatever it may be any kind of medical issue, it may be any kind of, you know, things are getting a little, you know, the weight's getting a little too heavy to bear. Don't let it get out of control. You know, don't let that stuff get out of control. Your health's too important. You know, you want to be here as long as you possibly can, because you never know. We may only get one chance. I don't think that. You know, I don't believe in that, but we may only get one chance. And you want to make the most out of that chance that you possibly can. So if you got something wrong, make sure you get to your doctor and you tell him, you know, and you tell him or her about it, so you can take the steps necessary to make sure that that it can be managed and it can be treated effectively. So I'm off my soapbox. Doug barely talked.
It's okay. You had an important message to get out there.
Well, you know, yeah, it's important. You know, I think it's important for people to not, you know, people not to be embarrassed about it. You know, hey, it happens. You know, hey, if anybody wants to, you know, I'm 6'5". I mean, I'm 6'5" and I'm a freaking tank. You know, if anybody wants to call me a wimp, well, that kind of probably be funny. But that'd
be funny watching you go after him.
You know, but I mean, you know, even the, you know, people look at me. People have looked at me like a, you know, at a quote unquote rock. You know, a lot of people look at me as an anchor. You know, as if everything goes wrong, well, we can go to him. And you know, even the people who are the rocks, you know, they're gonna crack at some point. You know, and you know that's just what happened. You know, a crack showed up, but you know I ain't broken. Just a crack showed up. So. Yeah, so, you know, I'm working on that. That's kind of what happened last week, to give you guys an idea of what happened and give you guys an idea of why we weren't here.
The important thing is you are back, and we have a awesome show tonight.
I'm back so far. Back so far. Yeah, we do. We have an awesome show tonight, and we're gonna keep it going. We're going to go to our top of the hour break here, folks. When we come back, A.K. Kuykendall will be joining us. We're going to be talking about his book. We're going to be talking about a whole bunch of stuff with A.K. We may get into the Malaysian thing with him, too, because it's kind of interesting. What about all these earthquakes going on? And what about Yellowstone? We didn't even talk about that. A lot of stuff to talk about tonight. Phone lines will be closed, folks, for the first half hour or so. We're talking to A.K., so we can talk to him ourselves. You know, we're not trying to be selfish. It's just the fact that we want to talk to him a little bit. But after that, folks, they will be open for you. If you guys have a question for AK, you want to interact with us, come on over to our chat room. HeyZRadio.com, HEYZ radio.com is the place. Look for the word chat in the top header of our homepage. Come on in and join us. We want to see you there. We love the interaction of our listeners. We try to be the most interactive show out there on the planet. And that's the way you can do it. Come on into our chat room, talk to all of us. Clarissa, Lexi, Doug, and myself are there. Also, Miss Z's in the house. You'll be able to talk to her about all the new shows, what's coming up. Also, Karma Cookie and Moopy Darling have been with us from the beginning. We want to thank them. Come on over and join us over here. We really would love to see you, and we love to talk to you. And if you have any questions for our guest tonight, A.K. Kuykendall, during the show, we will make sure they get to them so we can answer for you. You're listening to Crossing the Void Radio on the Hazy Radio Network, and we'll be right back. 9 minutes after the hour, Crossing the Void Radio on the Hazy Radio Network. Again, thanks to everybody out there who is listening in tonight. Wherever you may be listening in, you may be listening over at TalkStream Live. Of course, we're 24/7 over there now, and we want to give a special shout out to them for doing that. That was really cool of them to do. A lot of fun stuff going on tonight, folks, and it's just getting better now. Because with us on the line, of course, well, first, welcome back, Doug.
Hello.
With us on the line is a guy we met for the first time over there on Periscope Uncensored, Clarissa's show, and we got into some great stuff, and him and I kind of immediately bonded. I remember that after the show. After the show, we talked with this guy for an hour or more. Could have been more than that. And just really, really fascinating stuff. His book, Conspirator's Odyssey, is a great book. I hope you guys will go out and look for it. You can look for his works at his website, www.thewriterofbooks.com. Ladies and gentlemen, Crossing the Void wants to welcome Mr. A.K. Kuykendall to the show. A.K., how you doing?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Very good, very good. We're actually doing better up here in New England because it's finally starting to get warm.
All right. That's always a good thing.
It's not 5 degrees anymore.
and there's no snow on the ground.
Yeah, oh man. It was funny. It was 55 degrees today and everybody's outside in shorts. That's how cold it's been up here. But no, I mean, really, really interesting stuff to talk with you about tonight, AK. First off, why don't you give my listeners a little idea about who you are? Give us a little bit of a bio of yourself.
I'm a corporate executive chef by trade. Graduated from the ECC-JCC's Culinary Division, which is a strong division, actually the first tier division of the Kentucky Culinary Institute at Louisville, Kentucky. But I've been a creative spirit at heart. I've been through my own gambit of being a model at one time, a commercial actor at one time, as well as trying to, doing all these, crazy auditions, as well as, doing a little bit of commercials here and there, and then teaching for schools like Barmazan School of Modeling, Acting, and Stunt, as well as John Royer Powers. Everybody's heard of those things because those two industries really sucker parents that have a lot of money. But yes, I've done my gambit of being a creative spirit when I was younger. But, after getting my degree and then going off to my first alma mater, Mary Holmes College in West Point, Mississippi, and then graduated from the Mississippi University for Women, and smart men too, don't get me wrong, people. I graduated from that with a major in pre-med and a minor in psychology. But I decided to fall back on being a culinarian and try to be the best chef I could be, and did very well for myself throughout the years. But I neglected to go to medical school because I wanted to just fall back on my love of food. But one love that I've had other than that is writing. I love the written word. And in my spare time, whether it's an hour, 5 minutes, or 30 seconds a day, I would always put ink to paper. And because I always told myself that I never know when a story idea is going to turn into $1 million. And ultimately, that's what led me to the path that I'm on now.
Really, really cool. And I mean, I actually thought about going to school for a while to be a chef, and I know that trade is just that trade is kind of very cutthroat, very demanding, and I can see it in your work. I can actually see it in your work, in your writing. There's a I don't know how to put it. There is a sense to detail, that I know that a lot of chefs have. It's bred into a lot of chefs. There's this detail, that has to be done. If you're doing huge dinners, every plate has to be the same, and I can see that actually come out in your writing. That there is this unbelievable sense to detail within your writing, and I'm sure that sense to detail had to come from your experience being a chef.
Yes, very much so, because it's not just the brunt. I only went through a small stage. I graduated first in my class from the Kentucky Culinary Institute, and was awarded, through the accreditation, was awarded $17,000. I could go into that story, but it kind of disturbs me a little bit because I actually went through the Master Chef trials, but I actually failed by 13.4 points.
Ugh.
And yes, so it's a long story, my life in a sense, but I didn't pay for it, because of the graduating top of my class, I got a chance to go to full ride. But I've done certain things around the world. I was a corporate culinary consultant for the 2000 Olympics in Sydney, Australia, through Airmark Incorporated. A team and I, we won that bid at the 1996 Atlanta Olympic Games. I was, Dr. Phil, if anybody heard of Dr. Phil, his son went to Southern Methodist University out of Dallas, Texas. For over 5 years, I was the executive chef at the Southern Methodist University campus. And that's where we won the Medals Museum bid. So, if I went into my resume as a culinarian, it would kind of, take the time of the show, and I don't want to do that. But ultimately, I've had a great ride, and I'm still at it. I'm still, strongly at it. Of course, the companies that I work with are confidential, so I can't really mention them in this vein because this has nothing to do with that. And if that got around to my superiors, 9 times out of 10, I don't put bread and butter, and I would have to rely on the written word. And if I had to rely on the written word, I would be starving right now. My kids would be skinny as all get out.
Right. So, no, I can totally respect that. I totally respect
that. Yeah. But I love food, and if you got a chance, even though we talk about my conspiracy work, but if you got a chance to read my writer's block novel, you could actually see the way I talk about food. Other than detail, you can actually see how I talk about food on the inside of there. But here's the caveat. My character, Gregory Stillingsworth, is a world-famous horror author with over 73 novels to his credit. But he can cook like a master chef, even though he's not a chef, he's a writer. He can cook like a master chef. Now, guess what I am? I'm a chef, but I'm trying to be a great writer.
So
it's like, he's like me, but in reverse.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, because I was able to read a little of the other book. Is that kind of character? Is that character just kind of you? It's just kind of turned around where he's the author who can cook like the master chef. Does that character really have a lot of you in it?
Yes, it does. It does. Even the female characters have a lot of my traits as well as the male characters, and the male lead has a lot of traits of me. But every author, if you ever read, many novels out there, 9 times out of 10, it's part of the personality of the writer himself. You've seen Stephen King's work. Stephen King is a nerd times 80. Actually, a nerd times 800. And he's really a corny, quirky thinker. And the way his personality is, only his wife knows, is fused into his work. That's why, I love Stephen King's work, and I would never put down any other author's work. But the one thing I don't like about Stephen King's work is that he will start off a story powerful. It'll be a powerful story, starting off in the mid, but at the end it ends in the weirdest of ways, except for The Shining, except for Creepshow, and except for the new one, The Mist. Except for those three, his books end really weird. It's as if some nerd that got Down syndrome turns into a powerful alien at the end. It's just really crazy. And even to the point where you saw the movie or read the book It?
Yeah, I did.
The horror movie? Yeah. It ended crazy. A space spider? What the heck was that?
Well,
the story was so good. It was so good, but when you get to the end and you see it's a spider, that's ridiculous.
Well, it's the same thing as his, I think it was his book, The Langoliers. I don't know if that was just a TV. Yeah. That was a weird book. There were weird concepts in that book, and it was to me it was hard to follow. You know, because you just couldn't get around the concepts of what he was trying to do. It was almost like I can understand where you're going. It's like he starts fast, and then it's like he starts thinking of new things, and before you know it, he's up here and he's like way up here, and you're still down here, and you're going, wait a minute, what's he talking about?
Exactly, but that always attributes to being to genius. As an author, it contributes to being genius, because every author has to come up with his or her own writing style and an approach to the written word, and that's where people relay him as being a genius, and I do as well. I consider him to be a genius at the written word as well, because he knows how to piece certain things together.
Tell us a little bit about. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was I just fell off that sentence right there, so I'm sorry.
Tell us a little bit about your writing style, because I know when we talked to you on Periscope Uncensored, you write fact-based fiction, and the only way that I could really... Somebody was asking me, one of my friends was asking me when we were getting ready to do the show, well, what do you mean by fact-based fiction? The only thing I could relate to it is kind of like Dan Brown. You know, is Dan Brown's novels, and I'm a huge Dan Brown fan.
Yes.
Would you kind of loosely relate your novels in the same style as Dan Brown, reading it seems like you kind of take a step up from it a little bit, because where Dan Brown uses places, where he's using places and he's using history, it seems like you may be using actual events.
Yes, I do. I use actual events because that's also part of my theory. Because ultimately, I'm a theorist. I'm a conspiracy theorist. Mm-hmm. And even though I hate that term, I'm actually a conspiracy theorist, or what you call a truther, or a person that could actually read, that tries to read between the lines of what's going on around us, or what's happening in the matrix that we actually live.
Right.
I try to separate myself from the masses to get a more better, crisp understanding of what's taking place around us. And when I write these concepts, I do look at it as fact-based fiction. And the only reason I say fact-based fiction is because I have a family and children. Right. I'm going to be taken out by the FBI and CIA. I'd rather them believe me to be full of shit rather than come headhunting for me, all because I'm divulging certain things. Mm-hmm. So I kind of love it when the CIA, FBI, Secret Service, Washington, Senate, and Congress believes me to be full of it.
Right.
Why I strategically distribute truths to awaken the populace, because ultimately the things that I'm talking about truly did happen in history. It did happen in history. The reason why John F. Kennedy was killed was nothing to do with the Russian involvement, Bay of Pigs, and all the other kind of crap you can throw at it. It was as simple as a war. The war in Vietnam that he just pretty much he wasn't going to flagship. He wasn't going to allow it to happen. Mm-hmm. But when he said he wasn't going to allow it to happen, and he was in the way of, they had to take him out in order to go to war. But the reason for going to war and behind the assassination is where my theory ultimately comes into play. And I'm tiptoeing around it by and using the only thing I have to use, and that's historical fact.
Yeah,
I use historical fact to set the precedent, because Harry S. Truman flagshipped it all. He actually put in place and fortified tenfold the military-industrial complex, the same military-industrial complex that President Eisenhower, his predecessor, his successor, President Dwight David Eisenhower, tried to stamp out covertly during his tenure. But it failed, and everything that he was attempting to do was reduced to something as simple as his 1961 speech to our farewell address to the nation. Mm-hmm. It was reduced to that speech, because when that speech took place in 1961, no one, if you just tell me if I'm wrong. No one knew what the hell he was talking about,
right.
Especially in that day. No one knew what military-industrial complex. People tinkering with stuff inside their basement is going to be outdone by technology. Basically, we have to be aware of the military-industrial elite, and that our scientific elite that we could be actually, that's hovering over us. He was actually telling us everything that was going on, but he did it to the point where him and his wife wouldn't get taken out. But they actually proved to him that they had the means and the will and the means to take out a United States president, because he actually had a covert meeting with John F. Kennedy when he first met at the White House after Kennedy, days after Kennedy was elected over that sweating dude. What is it? Nixon. Mm-hmm. So he actually had a meeting with him, and he actually divulged this information, and he told him how to strategically go about trying to squash the rise of the military-industrial complex. But Eisenhower is a general of the highest class. He is one of a handful of 5-star generals, and he tried to tell this kid Kennedy how to strategically maneuver in politics. And in the military, when you're dealing with the military, when you're dealing with the CIA, when you're dealing with the FBI, he tried to tell Kennedy all this. But Kennedy said, "To hell with you," and he went off and he did everything full frontal. Remember his speeches? His speeches were bold. Yeah. No United States president ever made speeches like that. Eisenhower sat back because he knew exactly what was going to take place.
Well, case in point,
he told Kennedy.
Case in point, look at Kennedy's Secret Society speech. I mean, if you really listen to it, you realize, and a lot of people say, and I kind of, when I looked at it, I agree with it. It may have been that speech that truly got him killed.
Exactly. But those secret societies are scattered everywhere. But it's not. But ultimately, it's not just that. My theory is more deep than that. And the theory that even though my story is presented as fact-based fiction,
right.
You ever notice that in my marketing, in the way that I talk about my project, do I ever talk about it as if it's fiction?
No.
I talk about it from a factual perspective, because that's from my perspective, that's exactly what it is. Mm-hmm. I'm saying it boldly to you, but on paper, you're like, oh, this is a great story, but then this right here is true. Basically, true truth seekers will dig deeper to piece together the puzzle that I put in front of you. It's much deeper than that, because basically Kennedy was just simply in the way of a war. But that war was connected to the military-industrial complex and their clandestine, covert, scientific processes that they were undergoing.
Which is,
i.e. the super soldier agenda,
right.
MK Ultra, all these things that you've heard about. That was all taking place. And in order for any military to show its power on the world stage is to go to what? War.
Let's go to war, yeah.
Exactly. But they basically was just testing a beta version of their concocted serum that was injected into thousands upon thousands of our men in the field in Vietnam.
This is going to be a fun night, folks, because I know we have talked about the JFK assassination on this show before, but this is going to get much deeper, and it's going to go to a place. If you've read the book Conspirator's Odyssey, you kind of know where we're going to go. If you haven't, and this is the first time you've ever heard AK, the first time you've ever heard of AK and you've heard of some of his writing, we're going to go to a place where he believes the link is that a lot of people won't even think about. We're going to do that after our bottom of the hour break, folks. We're going to start getting into the meat of this, and we're going to start having a lot of fun with Mr. AK Kuykendall. If you have any questions for AK, give us a call. 860-261-2887 is our phone number, 860-261-2887. If you're listening on one of the many apps out there, come on over to our chat room. HeyZRadio.com is the place, HeyZRadio.com. Look for the word chat in the top header of our homepage, and come on in and join us. We love interacting with you, and if you have any questions for AK, we will make sure that they get to him so he can answer them for you. You're listening to Crossing the Void Radio on the Hazy Radio Network, and we will be right back with more with Mr. AK Kuykendall. 33 minutes after the hour, Crossing the Void Radio on the Hazy Radio Network. Thanks to everybody again who's joining us. Our guest tonight, AK Kuykendall. He is the author of Conspirator's Odyssey, and we actually have some, we'll be talking about it later when we let him do all his shameless plugging. very interesting news he's actually told us off the air about Conspirators Odyssey. So if you guys, hope you guys will look forward to that. But AK, welcome back. It's a pleasure having you here.
Well, thank you.
And let's get into it a little bit. Let's get into the meat of this book, because this book was great, and of course a lot of people are very interested in the JFK assassination. There is nobody out there, even not just in the United States but all over the world, who, when you bring up the three letters JFK, don't have a story or don't have an idea of themselves of what happened. Yours is amazing, and it is very plausible, because I've always thought that, yes, there's a lot that went on. There's a lot of reasons why, unfortunately, whoever it was, the government or whoever, wanted this man out of the picture. And, your story actually takes the link back even further than most of the stories that I've heard. You actually take it back to a certain event that happened in Roswell, New Mexico. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, in Roswell, New Mexico, Harry S. Truman was on. He had the Oval Office at that time. He was the president, Harry S. Truman. Harry S. Truman actually took a covert rendezvous, got on Air Force One on the second night of that event, on the 4th. It was the 3rd, 1947. On the 3rd, he got on the 4th and went down to Roswell. Basically, he was speaking to a general. And basically, he was not a general, but a colonel. He was speaking to the colonel. Basically, he met with an extraterrestrial by the name of, they called him an extraterrestrial biological entity. But if you ever heard in any kind of case files or research, the extraterrestrial biological entity was known as EB. They named him EB as an acronym. So if you ever just Google EB, 9 times out of 10 you'll see this character come up over and over again. EB was an actual gray alien that was actually captured from the Roswell UFO incident. Other than other extraterrestrial brethren of theirs, but they were injured so badly, some of them died, some were still alive. But this was in 1947. So by way of telepathy, EB actually spoke to Harry S. Truman. Scared him so much. He spoke to him, but when he spoke to him, the primary thing he spoke of is war. He talked about an intergalactic war. Eisenhower listened to the whole thing. I want to divulge everything because it's too tedious to go into detail.
Right.
But when he spoke of this war, Eisenhower's ears went up. Being the head of state, being commander-in-chief, you always got to look out for the sovereign. But he's in a process of not only looking out for the United States itself, its sovereign. He was also looking out for humanity in general. That's worldwide, because basically this intergalactic war had to do with all of humanity. So basically, that's when he set in motion the process of building the military-industrial complex and building the scientific processes in the military-industrial complex through the arms divisions. But they used something that was beyond reproach, the scientific methods. Basically, they used the genetics, the extraterrestrial biology, in order to try to create what all nations have always wanted, a superhuman soldier.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, when people think of grays, these gray aliens, they think of very smaller than us, weaker than, smaller stature, weaker than us. What in the this alien's makeup did they see that really made them start to believe that they could genetically modify something to make humans into super soldiers? What was it within this alien's DNA which they realized they could use to make humans basically into these super soldiers? Was it something they found right away? Was it something they found during an autopsy? Was it something that this alien told these scientists of?
No, nothing, no information like that. Basically, when they were doing an autopsy on one of, or several of the alien beings, but they were doing an autopsy on one of them, basically their skin has been described as, if you just do any kind of case study or Google it, their skin has been described as something having to do with, it feeds like a plant would feed, like photosynthesis. Mm-hmm. So that means ultimately it has a healing property. in their genetic makeup. It's got a healing property, even to the point where even as they were working on these beings, they would see skin start to slowly fold back together. Certain cell structures fold back together. So in a sense, these beings actually were healing themselves. But basically, if you're gonna have to do with interstellar travel, things like that, because basically nothing can live in space, nothing can live in outer space, and at the rate of speed and the way that these individuals fly these spacecrafts, we could never even fathom. But their genetic makeup was actually built for that interstellar travel. Basically, the scientists of our military's arms divisions, basically their core objective was to find a way to use the genetic makeup of these beings in order to facilitate a superhuman soldier. To try to find, they've been doing it for years. You ever heard of the Dulce base in New Mexico? Oh, they've been kidnapping you, me, our children, our mothers, daughters, sisters, brothers. They've been kidnapping us for years and experimenting on us. Splicing us with animal DNA, trying to create a superhuman soldiers. Even remember those milk carton campaigns way back in the day?
One missing the missing children in the backyard.
Yes, and you never found them. Never found them again. They just never showed up again. They just like they just dropped off the face of the earth. They were part of those experiments. But remember, animal testing tells scientists but so much. Right. We, the American people, or humanity, we're the biggest test subjects that they need, because in order to know if it works on humans, they would have to test on humans.
Right.
Animal testing tells scientists but so much. That's why you hear concepts of chemtrails, because this is where the scary part comes in with my theory. It's bigger than the JFK assassination, even though JFK assassination is big, but it was just as simple as a war. He didn't want to go to war. They needed to test their new weapon, or at least what they thought was going to be their new weapon, and they had to get him out the way in order for Lyndon B. Johnson, who was beholden to them because he just wanted that Ivy League goody-goody out of the way. So Lyndon B. Johnson went along with everything, but he didn't realize that the experiment failed miserably, and basically Lyndon B. Johnson was left to hang to clean the whole mess up, and it just tarnished his legacy. But beyond that, Harry S. Truman was also aware that Evie had informed him that there's certain extraterrestrial races that humans are their primary food source. So Harry S. Truman get fortified. He didn't ultimately, in layman's terms, to be direct, he did not put in place the military-industrial complex and fortify it tenfold in order to do battle amongst our own species. He did this. He set these unethical processes into motion in order to protect the human race, no matter how heinous the path and trajectory of the scientific processes went. That's where you got chemtrails, trying to poison us or poison our skins or something that would make us unpalatable to these extraterrestrial beings that are actually consuming us. That's where chemtrails come from.
Go ahead, AK. Finish your thought.
No. That's just ultimately where these sprays that you keep seeing in the skies, all these chemtrails people talk about. People don't know why they're doing it. What's the reason for you doing it? I'm trying to connect the dots of the reasons why these individuals are doing what they're doing. This is part of a bigger thing. This is part of a bigger mass objective, and it has to do with protecting the human race in general. But that's no matter who they have to kill, who they have to hurt, who they have to maim, who they have to poison, who they have to experiment with. They are doing this in order to protect themselves, and also by using the genetics of the enemy itself.
Who was when this? How did this alien know all this information that we were targets? Did he come from a different? Have you been able to find anything out? Did he come from a different time? Did he just know that these particular species were really beginning to either notice or target? They were going to target the Earth at one point. Where did the information from this alien that Eisenhower talked to come from? And did he have proof of it that he showed Eisenhower?
Everything was in Eisenhower's mind. These Greys cannot talk to you by way of their mouth. Everything is telepathy with the Greys. I don't know what the Greys showed them, but this is where I have a source which I can't divulge to you or anybody else. Or it will point the finger at my source, and then everyone else connected to he, she, or it. And you see how clever that was? He, she, or it. Because I can't. If I tell you he, you're gonna know it's a male. If I tell you she, you're gonna know it's a female. If I tell you it's it, you don't know what I'm talking about. If I put all three together, I'm pretty much safe. but then tell the information that I got from my source basically didn't go into detail of that, but it was talked about that these species of extraterrestrials have been with us since the dawn of mankind. Basically, like us. Let's put it this way.
So
you know how Congress and the Senate are the Republicans and the Democrats? You know how they fight like hell over us?
Oh, don't get me.
Because basically, the Republicans and the Democrats are in my opinion, are two-party dictatorships that are fighting like hell to man over the masses of American society. Basically, it has nothing to do with us, we the people. It has something to do with the taxes that we generate. They want to control the purse. Taxation without representation, blah, blah, blah. Same thing with these extraterrestrial species. So certain these extraterrestrial species, we're free-range humans. Like cows would be on a farm.
That's not good.
and Mars was and one of the theories that were put out there was that Mars was actually a planet, Earth, a habitable Earth at one time. And then you think about the story of Noah's Ark. And how all these animals and birds and all this other kind of stuff, that would be crazy. That would be insane. And this big boat and all this other kind of crap. No, it has something to do with genetics. Basically, the intergalactic war came to a head over our species, over the human race. And basically, they pretty much, the war got so bad, it annihilated the planet known as Mars. Wow. Turned it red. It's no longer habitable. And they seeded our DNA, our genetics on this planet Earth.
Jeez.
That's the better correlation between Noah's Ark, other than a whole bunch of birds and animals and cows and snakes and reptiles and lizards inside of a big ship. Makes no sense.
Doug, what do you think about all this? I mean, you've been sitting there very quietly kind of listening. I know you got to have a question or a comment or two here for AK.
Well, it's fascinating because I have not, unfortunately, had the chance to read your books yet. Finances got tight here, and a couple of trips that I had to,
basically, you went to a big ghost convention and you blew all your money. Come on.
That and knowing the government taxes this year kind of stank. But
oh yeah.
Otherwise, they are on my to-get list, and I have started reading books again. It's been a while, but I have 3 that I've started, so I need to finish at least one of them before I start another one, I think.
Oh, come on, Doug. I'm reading 7 right now. Come on, catch up.
Well, yeah, I think I average finishing a book once every about 4 years, so I'm doing pretty good right now. I finished one this year, so. But anyway, I had no idea about the possible connection with Roswell, and I've always been fascinated in the aliens and things of that nature. One of the reasons I've looked into the paranormal field. And I always knew of Roswell. I always knew we had stuff there that the public was not being told about for either safety or for fear of mass hysteria, or both.
I say it's the latter.
And hearing about the telepathy and stuff, it just is mind-boggling to me, because it's almost beyond our understanding to a point, but to the same point, we have telepathy that goes on in the human race outside of just aliens. Some people would consider psychics to be able to pick up things telepathically and stuff like that as well.
Well, that actually brings up another point. Are psychics, you got to ask yourself, are psychics and sensitives just part of this whole thing? Have they been modified by this race if they've been watching us for, since we've been living in caves?
Or hybrids.
Or hybrids.
Yes, I mean, most you wouldn't believe that most individuals there's certain theories out there that are just so mind-boggling, it actually makes you scratch your head. You ever notice how, okay, here's one. You ever notice how gray aliens, some gray aliens, the ones that are docile, the ones that are worker bees, they're the little tall, 4'3", extraterrestrial grays, right?
Big heads.
But then you have some depicted as being tall, very slender, gray aliens, very tall gray aliens. There's certain some case files I found in Germany where they predict, they tell that in America, there's alien hybrids or aliens themselves that are actually cloaked in the skin of humans. And guess what they are? They're the most beautiful people on our planet.
Yeah.
Oh. They're models. Uh-huh. They're supermodels. Uh-huh. They're models. They're in Hollywood. They're everywhere. And that is a very prevalent theory that individuals keep talking about or keep pointing to. Tall, slender, very thin, very slender. They could be actually fashion models. That's kind of weird. That's the only weird part. But I don't put none of that crap in my book because that's not what I'm focused on.
So
my focus is on putting pieces of the puzzles together. Say again?
What I was going to say is, you said that you had done some modeling. Does that mean you're one of those aliens?
I knew he was going to go there.
Modeling. It didn't work. See, look at me.
I knew he was going to go there.
But you never know. You can't trust anyone, whether my writing, whether my theories, whether my thoughts. The only thing I do for true truth seekers, not just individuals that just proclaim themselves to be truth seekers and like to read between the lines with all that crap. I'm talking about true truth seekers will see relevance in my theory, and not just in my story, but in my theory, and start to research for self-awareness and understand that there's a puzzle that I've put before you that's completely scattered and very difficult to put together. And strategically, I'm trying to put that puzzle together without pointing the finger at my source and without putting too much weight or heat on me, and without trying to come off sounding like a nut. I'm trying to find a way of strategically putting these pieces of the puzzle together.
Right.
Because you wouldn't believe that this whole thing even goes back as far as 1917, when the Red Baron shot down a UFO, when he had the sun at his back and he was on a morning patrol with his second lieutenant. He was on a morning patrol in the air. The Red Baron shot down a spacecraft, a circular spacecraft. But when he shot that spacecraft down, there was foot soldiers that gave chase to two extraterrestrial beings that actually escaped. But other beings were in ships. Some were dead, and some were actually alive, but pretty much recovering in a sense. Mm-hmm. But he shot this being down. But remember, now this is where it gets very tricky. Even though we did go to war in World War II with Germany, right?
Right.
Against Hitler, the Fuhrer. But did you know that the United States was actually in an alliance with Germany in World War I?
Yes, I did. Yep.
You see where I'm coming from?
Yep.
That means we've had our hand in the cookie jar for a long time.
Well, there's multiple, and there's multiple circumstances of that, with the United States being allies at one point and then basically going to war with that country, later.
Exactly, and most of that stuff is based and steeped deeply in strategy. How do you continue to create of your nation, in the eyes of the world, a superpower status? You have to win great and grand battles. Mm-hmm. Eisenhower had something to do with this. Eisenhower knew about extraterrestrials that were recovered in 1917. Eisenhower was a first lieutenant in the regular army when he was actually summoned to the White House when he was after World War I. He came back to the United States. He wasn't in World War I. He didn't lead in World War I, but he did write a certain paper. It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember it offhand. But he wrote a paper that actually surmised the Battle of World War I. But he was actually prepping himself to lead the campaign in World War II. But in between years before World War II kicked off, actually in 1939. World War II kicked off late 1939, but he was actually came back to Washington. He worked in Washington, in Dallas, and in Georgia for a certain amount of time. But when he was in Washington on his duties in Washington, he was summoned to the office by two people. Now you want to take these names down because I'm scattering pieces of the puzzle about, and it's up to true truth seekers to actually Google it, whatever you got to do to try to find these people in history. The Secretary of State Cordell Hull, that's one person, and President Franklin Delano Roosevelt summoned Eisenhower as a first lieutenant to to meet with them at a sub basement in the United States Capitol building, where in that sub basement there was 4 gray alien beings in tubes of formaldehyde. 4 intact gray beings in tubes of formaldehyde. Eisenhower knew about the extraterrestrials. That was the first time he ever knew there was life out this planet, and it was on that time. And that's when Franklin Delano Roosevelt set Eisenhower up to move through into the category of being the one of only a handful or one of only 5 5-star generals ever in history. He set him on that path based on a mission he gave him in 1939.
Wow.
That had to do with those gray aliens. But over time, Eisenhower was a grand strategist. He was a grand strategist, and you know that Dwight Roosevelt was the longest-serving president in American history. Y'all know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, he knew it was part of his plan. He knew that you can't just have served in the military and then go into a high office like the presidency. The presidency was, he knew that if the presidency, and based on his design for the presidency, was slowly but surely evolving to the point where they're going to have key military and strategical thinkers in the office. Eisenhower was one of them.
How do you explain George W. Bush then?
I can't explain that at all. I can't explain that. But he was a means to an end with George W. Bush. He was a means to an end, even to the point where I keep telling individuals, most conspiracy theories that you know of in history are actually connected in some way. The reason why Eisenhower rails against the continued rise in the military-industrial complex, especially its scientific categories, the reason he railed against that as he got older and became president, he railed against it only because of the perilous paths the once noble objectives steered. It was not about humanity anymore. It was about ultimate power over every other human.
Yeah.
When they got the super soldier, they wanted to take over nations, occupy nations without fear of losing men, without, limbs blown off, being able to regrow, all this other kind of crap. I call them tentacles, the tentacles that were going everywhere when it came to this objective. And that's what Eisenhower, that actually was a part of, railed against covertly.
Wow. And
mainly overtly in his 1961 farewell address to the nation, which we are just now starting to read between the lines of what he was saying to us.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, Harry S. Truman put this, he put in place the military-industrial complex, and he fortified it tenfold, not to do battle amongst our own species. No matter what happened and what method what unethical methods they were taking, he did it on behalf of preserving humanity itself.
Very interesting stuff here. We have to go to our top of the hour break, folks. When we come back, we're gonna have more with AK Kuykendall. If you guys want to give us a call, you have a question for AK, let us know. Here's the numbers: 860-261-2887. It's 860-261-2887. If you guys are listening out there on a mobile device, I can't talk. If you guys are listening out there on a mobile device, let's try this again. Like TalkStream Live, come on over and join us over here in the chat room. HayZRadio.com is the place. That's HEYZRadio.com is the place. Look for the word chat at the top header of our homepage. And come on in and join us. We want to hear what you think about all this interesting stuff tonight, folks. Really, really interesting stuff. Post your questions up in the chat room. We'll make sure we get them to AK so he can answer them. You're listening to Crossing the Void Radio on the Hazy Radio Network, and we will be right back after this long break and this news break from NPR. 10 minutes after the hour, Crossing the Void Radio on the Hazy Radio Network. Thank you to everybody tonight who is listening in. Our guest tonight, A.K. Kuykendall. He is the author of Conspirator's Odyssey. We've had a great, interesting Odyssey so far, and it's only going to get better, folks. If you guys have a question for A.K., give us a call. 860-261-2887 is our phone number. That's 860-261-2887. If you guys are listening on any of our apps that are out there, any of the many apps that are out there, there are so many apps out there, we don't even know how many apps are actually picking us up, and we know there's a lot of them. Come on into our chat room. HazyRadio.com is the place. That's HEYZ Radio.com is the place. Look for the word chat in the top header of our homepage. Come on in and join us. We love the interaction from our listeners. And, we definitely want to hear your questions, and we'll make sure we pass them on to AK as they come in. AK, I want to welcome you back. It's been awesome so far.
Oh, yeah, it's been good. I'm loving it.
And something, we were talking during the break, and, I always tell people that sometimes the conversations during the breaks behind the curtains are actually sometimes so much better than the conversations we have, in front of the curtains. I don't know why, but that's just the way it happens. But something I did want to talk to you about, and I kind of want to try to get back in the book a little bit, is I remember you were talking about Eisenhower and how Eisenhower was met by this gray. He also, going back into history, he's known that this alien presence has been out there for so many years. At one point, it sounded like earlier as we were talking, he supported some of the stuff that was, that they were, some of the programs they were beginning to do. When you get to the end of his presidency and the speech, if you guys have never heard Eisenhower's farewell speech as he was leaving the White House, you should go look it up on YouTube. When he was leaving, he began to start warning. He began to start warning people of what is coming. You can't do not let this happen. Be wary because the military is beginning to amass something that you do not understand and you do not want it to happen. When did his opinion change? What was the crucial point where his opinion changed in support of the programs that were going on to realizing that this was extremely bad going into the future and even beyond his life?
Okay, I don't want to confuse the listeners or anything. First, just as a clarification, it was Harry S. Truman that actually met with Evie.
Truman, okay.
But in 1917, that was in 1947. But in 1939 is when Eisenhower met with Secretary of State Cordell Hull and President Dwight David Eisenhower in a confidential meeting, very clandestine meeting at a sub-basement of the United States Capitol building.
I got confused, sorry.
Eisenhower, for the first time, knew of the existence of extraterrestrials, and he was put on a very, very important and very clandestine mission, which I allude to in Book 2 that I'm writing currently. But when it comes down to Eisenhower himself, he was a hungry soldier. This guy was a soldier that actually he went to the military academy at West Point. If you know history of Eisenhower, went to West Point. He actually, before he went to West Point, he actually played semi-professional baseball. So therefore, he couldn't play any college sports in college. It's against the rules, right? But the military actually covered up the fact that he played semi-professional baseball, so they could actually recruit him to play football. Because early on, they discovered that he is very acute at being a strategist, a very methodical thinker, and he used those practices even in football. But beyond that, basically, he knew he was being guided. That's what my research has led to. And I don't want to ramble or lose anybody here, but I'm trying to just get this information out. He actually, from West Point, he actually graduated with an abysmal academic record, unbecoming of an officer, and an abysmal conduct record, unbecoming of an officer. He should have been shunned out of the military, in his first throes, but he wasn't. He wasn't for some unearthly reason. But he ultimately they wanted him for his strategy, his strategy ability. So the next courses or classes or colleges that he went to, or officers training practices that he went to, he actually graduated number one over his colleagues of 246, a class of 246. So how did he go from a abysmal academic record to graduating number one at a highly astute strategist academy? I don't know the academy off the top of my head. I can get that to you as soon as I can, but I apologize I don't have that information in front of me.
I'm trying to see if I can find it. I'm actually trying to see if I can find it.
He was a grand strategist, a great strategist. And but he was also a very moral guy. He was a strategist, but he also believed in the concept and the heart of family, love, respect, and the respect of soldiers itself. But the reason why I lean to this is because he was just a hungry individual. He wanted power he wanted so bad to be a part of the top echelons of military brass. Eleanor Roosevelt gave him that opportunity when he was a lieutenant of the regular army in 1939 when he met with him. He put him on that path with the mission that he put in place in front of Eisenhower to take on this mission of a cover-up. And those details are in my coming project called Origins. Don't mean to plug it so hard. It's just that's where the further piece of the puzzle gets put together. But Eisenhower, as he became morphing from a general, leading men, seeing men die, seeing men maim, seeing men hurt, seeing men shake his hand, being so proud of the nation that they fought for. Basically, he knew what was going on. Being at the top echelons, top brass, he knew about the experiments. He knew that this once noble endeavor of creating a superhuman armed force, not to do battle amongst our own selves, but to battle an extraterrestrial species that Harry S. Truman so fervently put together. He knew that the arms divisions, the tactical arms divisions of our nation and the scientific divisions of our nation was steering in more off the kilter, pretty much off the hill, because they were like tentacles. They were moving into every category to the point where some of these rogue elements wanted to use these super soldiers to inevitably seize the world in its grasp, putting America at the top of the world, in a sense, i.e. the New World Order. Mm-hmm. This is what they've wanted. They don't have to worry about kowtowing to other nations, having to have alliances with other nations, the whole spiel. They wanted this. Eisenhower wanted to put an end to this because this was, in his eyes, completely immoral, because it went from what, in his mind, which he helped set up, in a sense, basically as a lower level officer, he helped set up. He wanted to put an end to this because of what it was tending on, it was about to do in the future. So basically what I always say is that in 1961, President Dwight D. Eisenhower spoke to our nation. Within this speech was a hidden code completely lost in translation for generations. It was a dire warning that spoke to clandestine operations of the military-industrial complex. The speech spoke to technically advanced experimental operations that took place on the back end of the 1947 Roswell UFO crash incident, when he spoke of the dangers having to do with we the people becoming the captives of a scientific, technological elite. Y'all remember that line from his farewell address in 1961? Mm-hmm. He was specifically trying to stop this, but it was a covert process of trying to stop this when he was in the White House. No one knew that he was trying to stop this. But everything, all his efforts, knowing the weakness of any given United States president, JFK gives you, is an example of. Basically, he knew that there's not much he could do from his position in power. So basically, he was reduced down to giving a speech that was completely lost in translation in 1961. And just now starting to come to, people are starting to read between the lines of what he was saying because of where our scientific advancements have steered. And some advancements are still so clandestine that we don't even know about, other than idiots like me talking about it.
So was there a point where Eisenhower, you could say, was in the same peril as Kennedy? Because did he begin to push too hard and he just realized there's just nothing I can do from where I'm sitting right now?
He was one of a handful. It was only 5, or if I'm not mistaken, 5 or 6 5-star generals ever in the United States history.
Right.
Only about 4 or 5, or no, about 5 or 6. I think it's 5 of 5-star generals. He was one of them. He knew the resolve of these black ops groups and what they would do, because most people don't understand this. This is what really blows me about the American people.
Okay.
The coveted title of President of the United States of America. Now tell me if I'm not hitting a nerve here when I say this. The highly coveted title of President of the United States of America, unbeknownst to any given citizen and/or candidate, is fraught with delusions of grandeur. Though the towering goals of these Americans, many of whom are mere activists seeking to use politics to move forward grand ideals, are admirable, they're misguided. All who seek the title truly believes they would have a hand in fundamentally shaping our nation, when in fact the tumultuous line of succession from one U.S. president to the next does not undo clandestine operations established beforehand, whether large or small, moral or immoral, of this world or beyond. Yes, the delusions of grandeur continue unabated as the true history of the office is lost on the people it was established to serve. Eisenhower knew fully well that he had no power. He knew fully well that democracy was nothing but rosy crap served to us haphazardly on a silver platter when we were nothing but toddlers in school. That the nation, our nation that we live in to this day, is a bureaucracy, and a bureaucracy by definition is a country ran by the unelected, not this rosy crap known as democracy, which means other people, by the people, and for the people, because that's nothing but a bunch of crap. We are a bureaucracy, and a bureaucracy is ran by those people that are behind the people that we supposedly vote into office, that actually control our nation.
So,
and it's led by the military-industrial complex.
So let me play devil's advocate for a minute. If Eisenhower knew that the office of the president, there was really no power in it, why did he accept it?
The main thing that Roosevelt talked about. Remember, he said it would take strategists. It would take, in 1939, he said the office is moving towards the need to have strategists to run our nation from a military perspective, an executive perspective, and a business perspective. Because most politicians go in there with exactly what I just divulged to you now.
Uh-huh.
He was a hungry lieutenant. He wanted to be a part of the top echelons, i.e. his 5 stars he eventually got. He knew what was happening. As time went on, things were more. Eisenhower was more. Basically, Eisenhower was still in the military. He was still rising in brass. You know, he went through. He was the Allied general commander in World War II. Out of all that, Truman was. Eisenhower, Roosevelt. It went to Truman. It went to Truman, and then after Truman was Eisenhower. Truman put this all into motion. Now, even though Eisenhower knew about it, basically he had a mission that was in a mission. But that was just to set up certain things. But not every general, commander, lieutenant, or any officer knows every single piece of what's going on when it's going on. But he did know about the super soldier agenda. And he believed it to be a noble undertaking taken by that then President Harry S. Truman. Because in the beginning it was noble. It was noble, his efforts at trying to protect mankind. But over time, it just morphed his spirit on where the trajectory. I'm sorry, the trajectory of where it was steering with certain rogue elements in our military complex, moving the needle in more ways and shifting the needle on the board away from where it would the original objective of the endeavor. Meaning they wanted to control the world. They didn't give a damn about no extraterrestrial species trying to take over or war. They didn't care about that crap. They wanted oil reserves. They wanted to go into nations and seize them. They wanted to be the not only just a superpower, the United States to be a superpower. They wanted the superpower supreme. Mm-hmm. They wanted it all. Mm-hmm. Eisenhower was against primarily that.
What do you think about all this, Doug?
It
kind of blown away like I am.
Yeah, blown away, and talking about that makes me think of Hollywood making the movie America World Police, and how much truth is behind a joke of that movie. I know it was made to be a comedy and a spoof, but when you stop and think about it, how often is America trying to police what's going on in the world, what's sending our troops over to here or over there, and it just makes you wonder, should we really get involved in half the stuff we're getting involved in?
Got to keep yourself alive and well for the day. You got to keep you got to keep those nations primed for the day that you're going to eventually take them over. Got to keep them primed. Hey, you can't let nobody come in there and destroy the rich mineral resources in certain nations. You can't let certain things disrupt where you have other rogue nations coming in, taking the resources that America ultimately wants in the first place. That's why they put these nations on a pedestal. They say you can't. Hey, this is all strategy here. This is a process.
Question from the chat room from Karma Cookie, going back to the aliens that Truman talked to. Were these by any chance the race commonly called the Anunnaki?
No, it was. My research has told me that the being that the acronym that was given the acronym known as EV, it was actually a gray alien, 4 foot and some change tall. It was actually a gray alien that was recovered from the 1947 Roswell UFO crash incident.
Yeah. This stuff is. I mean, the chat room is literally. It's kind of funny, AK. The chat room is not moving. It has not moved for like 30 minutes.
Yeah, it moves when we go to the commercial breaks, and then as soon as we come back, everybody just stops.
Everything just stops. So it's they're really listening to us tonight, which is really, really cool. They're really taking in what you're saying. So let's go to Kennedy. Kennedy comes into office, and the biggest difference about Kennedy that I could say about Kennedy, I mean, looking at him compared to the other presidents, and we talked about this, I think, during one of the breaks, was he was harder to control. Kennedy went in there, he had an agenda, he had his own administration. He was an independent thinker. The biggest thing about Kennedy is that he couldn't be controlled. I know you were telling me during one of the breaks that Eisenhower tried to in a sense warn him, or tried to in a sense talk to him about what you will and will not be able to do, and the reasons behind it. But Kennedy really didn't listen to Eisenhower, did he?
He didn't. Basically, he listened. He listened intently, because Eisenhower was like an old fogey. He was Kennedy looked at Eisenhower as an old fogey, just a very keen statesman. But this was what I was alluding to. What I stated when I said the highly coveted title of the President of the United States of America. The delusions of grandeur that politicians go into. That's why you have any given president, on the campaign trail, they say all kinds of crap, right?
Right.
But when they get in office, you ever notice that things just change drastically? Because they realize they don't have no power to do that crap.
Well, obviously
they have no power.
They obviously promise things they can't do.
That's why I call it the delusions of grandeur, because the office of the presidency wasn't set up in order for people to come and perform grand gestures. You're just on the stage for people to target when things go wrong in our nation. That's all you are. You're just a well-paid stooge. That's what the presidency is. Most people in America really believe that presidents have power. They don't. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. What was I about to say? Okay, ask me a question again. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. No, what I was talking about is that, you said that Eisenhower sat Kennedy down and basically talked to him about, tried to talk to him about, you really don't try to push this. Don't try to push it. This is what you can and can't do in this office. And basically Kennedy, being of the younger generation, of course I believe he's still the youngest president to ever be sworn in office. He didn't really see, he wasn't part of that old guard, like you said. He looked at Eisenhower and everybody else before him as being the old guard, and now a new guard, like he said in his inauguration address. The torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans. He thought he would be able to really spurn real change because he was the president of the United States.
Exactly. That's why I say the delusions of grandeur. He believed he could start true social change. That's what John F. Kennedy thought. That's okay. John F. Kennedy thought he could spur true social change. That's what he thought he could do. Eisenhower was trying to, not only did he tell him about He told him about the extraterrestrial agenda. He talked about the speech that he was getting ready to give, because before his farewell address to the nation, he actually talked in great detail to John F. Kennedy about the speech that he was getting ready to give. But Kennedy, even though he believed in the General Eisenhower's status and what he was able to do for our nation and in our country and do throughout his career, even to the point of rising to the point of being the President of the United States, he still believed what you talked about him being the same part of the old guard. And if anything was going to change in the nation, you would have to do things differently. You can't do things the same. And he was vehemently opposed to doing things the same. So what he did was do everything, and I'm talking everything different. No president, no head of state, no commander-in-chief ever talked like Kennedy did.
Right.
He talked about the American people. He didn't work for the bureaucracy. He worked for we the people, which, like I said before, democracy is of the people, by the people, for the people, like we are led to believe, when we're actually not a democracy at all. We are a bureaucracy. And a bureaucracy, by definition, is a country ran by the unelected. There are people behind the people that we supposedly vote into office that actually control our nation and its trajectory, whether it has to do with our life, whether it has to do with our death, how we breathe, how we eat, what we eat. Therefore, just like the FDA is in collaboration with certain drug companies, the FDA is in collaboration with certain congressmen, senators, and presidencies. It's a scary thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
We are being controlled from rooter to tutor. In order for any powerful social change to take place, you would have to do it take it on full frontal. But Kennedy was no soldier. He served, but he was no general. He didn't have the experience as Eisenhower. Eisenhower knew exactly what was going to happen, because the same thing Kennedy was doing, the same thing Kennedy did in your face and in the face of secret societies and in the face of our nation, and putting to the American people what was going on in our nation and what his agenda was about to stop. All that, Eisenhower did the same damn thing, but he did it in confidence, as a general and a strategist would do. But ultimately, his efforts were reduced down to a measly speech in 1961.
And because
Kennedy knew that.
Right.
Kennedy knew that.
Right.
And Kennedy decided to do the opposite. But he was so bold, he was so brazen, he was so in your face that he wasn't taken out just because of that. No, he was taken out only because he was in the way of a clandestine operation known as Project Animan. Project Animan was the concept that was forged from 1947 using the genetics of extraterrestrials to start a process of forced human evolution, i.e., super soldier. And the Vietnam veterans, they were test subjects. And if anyone is a Vietnam veteran out there, if anyone was in that battle and survived through that battle, if you just took a look around yourself, looked at the attitudes and the conduct and the glazed eyes of some of the men you served with, you know what the hell I'm talking about.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out where to go now. No, so I mean, Kennedy was the first. Kennedy was really Kennedy was the first to really look at that office and really not just for it being the office and not just, I mean, he was a true roadblock. I mean, he was getting in the way. He was literally getting in the way of everything. Everything.
Went up against Hoover. He went up against everything, even to the point where I even allude to, and I'm sure you read in my book, I even alluded to, I talked about other generals.
Right.
General Dimkin being a mole for Kennedy that actually made it look like Kennedy was playing chess. Kennedy was playing an intellectual game with these warmongers or these rogue black ops elements in our nation. He was playing chess with these individuals. He had things in the and he had moves already planned before the move that they made him. So he was a strategist just like Eisenhower in a sense, but on a lesser scale. But he was planning nothing but a pure intellectual game. It's like a nerd going up against a WWE wrestler, like an idiot.
But
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So he had it planned out. He knew that the Bay of Pigs. There were certain elements in our nation that was just wanting to go to war in Cuba so they can get back the money they lost when Fidel Castro seized their companies. They lost assets. They lost real money. Basically, Kennedy was in the way of everything. Mm-hmm. Everything. He wasn't going to, I'm going to go off with an all-out assault. But he was led astray when it came down to the Bay of Pigs. He was led astray about this, about that. But all those things come into play when it comes down to reasons why he was assassinated. Well, it had nothing to do with anything. It had something to do with what Eisenhower talked about, and that was the military-industrial complex. It was Project Animan, the concept of a superhuman soldier, and basically how does, I alluded to in the beginning of your program, at the beginning of this interview, in order for any weapon to be tested, the best area, the best platform for a weapon to be tested is during when? Is during what? War.
Right.
They needed to test this weapon. Mm-hmm. And they injected thousands upon thousands of our men in Vietnam and sent them into those jungles.
How much did Bobby know about this, and was he assassinated for the same reasons because he knew he would try to fulfill the agendas of his brother?
Well, I can only theorize about that. Kennedy was very close with Bobby.
Right.
He was very close with Bobby. But mostly Kennedy wanted to also, Kennedy kind of knew that he was roughing a lot of powerful people. He was roughing the feathers of a lot of powerful people. And there was no telling what they would do, but he just never thought that they would dare kill him. And especially in the fashion that they did it. Mm-hmm. He would never have thought that. And I think in protection of his brother, he might have talked to him about this. I wouldn't know. I can just speculate that he talked to him. But, mostly the social changes, when it came down to the African American rights, Civil Rights Act that Lyndon Baines Johnson ultimately passed, only because he was trying to get our minds off of that debacle in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. The only reason he passed that crap. And so, basically, Lyndon Baines Johnson didn't want to pass that, but he, in his legacy says that he passed the Civil Rights Act. It wasn't Kennedy that did it. But Lyndon B. Johnson was at the forefront of this whole agenda to send out the flagship Vietnam. And the reason why I tell you that it had everything to do with Vietnam, it had nothing to do with anything else. All these other colorful, rosy crap that people keep talking about, it had to do with Vietnam and the experiments that was forced in 1947. It's primarily because think about how hard they tried to push us into war with Vietnam. You mean to tell me they went to war because a small ship in the Gulf of Tonkin supposedly shot at a naval vessel? Mm-hmm. We went to war because of that crap?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense because
it makes
Vietnam,
no sense.
A lot of people forget in history that Vietnam, even before the United States got involved, there was a conflict. There was already a conflict in Vietnam. I mean, this was basically the Vietnamese Revolution, and we jumped into it.
Exactly.
And it doesn't make sense to us. It's never made sense to me. It's like this was, before we jumped into it. I believe it was the French that the Vietnamese were fighting. I think it was the French. Was it the French, AK?
The Vietnamese were fighting? Yeah, they were fighting the French. Yes, yeah. And the French actually took Saigon at one time before Saigon took it back, before they took it back, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
If my history is correct.
Right. So this was basically when you look at the war before the conflict in Vietnam, or I should say the war because it was a war, before we got into it, this was the Vietnamese's Revolutionary War. This was their Revolutionary War, like we fought a Revolutionary War, and I never could wrap my head around, until I read your book and you kind of read, some of the stuff and the stuff in your book makes sense. I never could wrap my head around why did Johnson get us into a war for, basically their war for independence. And they got one major major military force out, and now another one is coming in. And it never made any sense to me. Why did we get into basically what was their Revolutionary War? You know, the minute we came in, they would fight like hell. It's like, well, we just got this one out. Trust me, we'll get this one out. You know, and that never made any sense to me on why we went into Vietnam, because why would you get into a conflict like that? Why would you stir up a hornet's nest and then literally bash it with a baseball bat? You know?
Yeah, exactly. I'm telling you, it was that war that was needed. But people were, you might as well say Lyndon B. Johnson for as robust and in your face as a guy that his history, that his legacy has proven to be. You know, the tall, statuesque guy that was intimidating. He was actually on strings, being danced around by Black Ops assets in the military-industrial complex, at the higher echelons of the military-industrial complex. Right. Basically, the work that deal with Lyndon B. Johnson, you get what you want. You want to be a president, we'll make that happen for you. But this is what we want.
Well, I mean, you know, a lot of people basically say that he told, I don't remember the general that he told, but he basically told one of the generals, if you get rid of that son of a bitch, I'll give you your war.
Exactly. I haven't heard that quote, I haven't seen that quote, but I wouldn't ask him. But he wouldn't just talk to a regular general. He wouldn't just talk to a regular general, but people at higher levels, over generals, over presidents that had a hand in this Animan project, the super soldier agenda.
Yep. We got you for about 10 more minutes, AK. I can't believe the time's already flied. We haven't even got into everything yet. We're definitely going to have you back, but let's talk about, because everybody wants to talk about it. Everybody's got a theory about it. Dealey Plaza, there are a lot of theories going around what exactly happened in Dealey Plaza during that entire incident. Some people say Oswald did it. I don't know how they could. I've like I was telling you, we've gotten stories, we've gotten theories on air that he was accidentally shot by a Secret Service agent. We've gotten other stories on air. It was somebody behind the grassy knoll. Others that it was somebody within a storm. You know, it was somebody within a storm drain, but Oswald was there. Tell me your theory. What is your theory? What happened in Dealey Plaza? What were the events that took place that day, November 22nd, 1963?
Well, as I allude to in the first book of the Conspiracy Odyssey series, The Evolution of the Patron Saint, basically Oswald was a first wave of a, in a sense, a superhuman soldier. He was the first wave. But the manicure carcano that he shot with, it was loud and it left us a very smoky trail. Basically, what I allude to is that he was on a mission. He knew he was on a mission, but his mission wasn't to kill the president, because in a sense, he couldn't kill the president from that distance. So basically, he was set up to be the patsy, because basically his job was to shoot 3 shots.
Now, something conflicting.
It made everybody turn their. You ever notice that when the shots went off, they were so loud and it had a smoky trail from that window?
Everybody turned their head.
It was unmistakably, right. They turned directly in that direction, and that's where everyone else. That's when the mission really took place, to kill the president. That's when the mission took place, to kill the president. And shots came from everywhere. But one of the biggest things that I allude to, which most people will pretty much scratch their heads to and say, oh, this guy is full of shit. I allude to in my book that he was actually shot by a child. And the child was located, only a child could actually, just think about this theory for a second. Only a child could actually fit into that storm drain, which that everybody keeps talking about, this storm drain location.
Right.
A full-grown adult couldn't fit there.
Right.
A full-grown adult could not fit in that storm drain. It was a child that was in that storm drain.
And the access to the storm drain, if I do remember right, is behind the grassy knoll, and it's a manhole cover which is now welded shut.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Right. It was an entrance. Actually, the entrance is on the other side of the fence. So where you seen that the infamous shadow guy. Basically the shadow guy was nothing but a lookout. But this guy, this person that actually shot him, that I allude to in my book, was actually a kid at that time. And you know how old that kid was?
Oh, God.
9 years old.
9 years old.
He was 9 years old. And he delivered the fatal shot. There was many other operatives out there shooting at Kennedy. Oh, they landed their shots. Some missed, some didn't miss, but they landed their shots. But the fatal shot to the cranium came from that manhole. It came from that trajectory. No matter what you say, because he went up and back. Right. He went upside back.
Yeah, he went up he went back and to the left, and the only way, I mean, there are excuses. I mean, if you read the Warren Commission report, they said that because he had a back brace on, and when the bullet hit from behind, it caused a vacuum, which made him go back and to the left. And you're like,
that's a bunch of BS.
Yeah, and you're like, excuse me? You just basically told me that everything we know about science is basically gone. It just doesn't exist at this particular point in time. Yeah, if it goes back and to the left, you know where the force came from.
Exactly, but just like this whole thing with the governor and what is that gate that you keep hearing about over and over again? It was nothing but a whitewash. Yeah. The Warren Commission was a whitewash, literally. That was probably the first whitewash ever.
Question in the chat room for you, AK. You're gonna love this one. This one's from Karma Cookie. I love Karma Cookie. A lot of people. Karma Cookie is this guy in the chat room. I love this guy because he ain't afraid to put a controversial question or comment into a chat room, and I love that about him because he ain't afraid to speak his mind. So I'm going to give this to you, and I'm just going to let you run with it. He says, Oswald was a prototype super soldier. No offense, I find that hard to believe. He was taken very easily by Jack Ruby.
He did not die that day. My book alludes to Oswald did not die that day.
Very interesting.
He went on to do many more missions, but he was taken out eventually. But he died much, much later. He did not die that day.
Well, that is something you can actually say, because when you look at the footage of Ruby going up to shoot Oswald, something I realized, especially where he shot him, and he shot him right in the midsection. It looked like right about, I'm trying to remember, I think he shot him right about around the liver, around in there. If you look really closely, even with that grainy black and white footage, there's no blood. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you've looked at it, AK. Maybe you've seen blood. I didn't see any blood.
No, there was no blood.
Yeah.
He did not die that day. Basically, when you read my book,
yes,
so you know how I set this whole thing up.
Yep.
And it had to do with his greedy mother, Margaret Oswald.
Yep.
It had to do with his greedy mother. He was tested along with other people, other kids at that time, because Oswald was a skinny kid that was kind of shy and withdrawn. Mm-hmm. And the government was in the process of doing, experiments, trying to know this whole crap about, enhancing the intellect and making them better people and making them come out of, basically all those experiments that were happening back in those days. But basically they were taking certain young men and they were experimenting on them. Oswald happened to be a very skilled individual. So in the process of those experiments, they looked after him, but they needed to get him into basic. So they put him in the military. But do you know that he was dishonorably discharged? There's a lot of things that happened with Oswald. He got not dishonorably discharged. He got written up constantly for conduct issues, anger issues. But why does he still in the military?
Isn't it true that he didn't the first time he went through, he didn't qualify as a basic rifleman?
No. Basically, he was meant not to qualify as a basic rifleman, but you're correct. He was meant to not qualify as a basic rifleman.
Okay.
This is all part of a concept, a conspiratorial concept. But he was looked after very well in the military. He was like one of the only beta versions of this superhuman soldier. He could run at speeds without breaking he could run at certain speeds without breaking a sweat. He could infiltrate other countries and pick up the language within days. Mm-hmm. Russian, he could speak Russian fluently. He could speak other languages fluently. There's certain missions that we have never heard of him being on that he was on. But after the Roswell incident, after the whole JFK assassination and the whole debacle, his face was augmented. It was changed, and he lived on to do more missions. He did not die that day in Daily Father. He did not die that day. He went on to do more missions. All this was a scam. Why wouldn't you protect this man even more? They couldn't let this man be put in front of the American people on trial. That would have been crazy. It would have put a hole in the eventual Warren Commission. The Warren Commission wouldn't even know how to put that crap together.
Right.
It would tell so many things because they threw so much stuff at us thinking that we were just that stupid. But back then, we were so gung-ho America and land of the free and so patriotic that we did not see the crap that was being shoveled. They told us about something called a magic bullet, and we believed it. A magic bullet?
I know.
That came out of one man, came out of Kimney's back, throat, went into the person in front of him, forgot his name, turned around, came right back and get the hell out of here.
Governor Conley, yep.
Governor Conley, exactly. A magic bullet. And we actually, in 63, we actually believed that crap. At least a good swath of us believed that crap.
That's because they saw it on Bugs Bunny.
Exactly. And Bugs Bunny, that's another thing. Bugs Bunny and all those cartoons and all the television that we watch today, that's all part of PSYOPs. All of it. Every last bit of it. We have been controlled from rooter to tutor. And I'll tell you no lie. If the concept of the Matrix is real, not as glamorized as it is in the movies, but the concept of the Matrix is real.
The Matrix is actually a movie. When I first watched it, I will admit to you, scared the hell out of me.
Yes. I contest that it's real.
Absolutely.
I contest that it's real. We are being controlled by minions.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a movie that scared the hell out of me. And, AK, I mean, it's nuts. 2 hours just flew by, man. We got to get you back on because we haven't even brushed the surface. And I want to make sure we get you back on so Doug can read your book and he's been really quiet and he's been too quiet. Doug's got to get some questions in. What I want you to do right now, because I know we're coming up to the end of our time here with you, I want to give you the opportunity to plug, promote, basically sell wherever you're going to be, any conferences you're going to be at, any appearances you're going to make. I want you to basically shamelessly plug yourself like crazy. Go ahead, my friend. The floor is yours.
Okay. The plugging, where I'm going to be. I'm doing nothing but radio interviews and maybe some Skype interviews because I had to cut off everything because now in the process of writing my next book to the Conspiracy Theory series because I just got my agent Donald Mass out of New York, part of DMLA, just signed a 4-book deal for 4 more books in the Conspiracy Odyssey series. I guess someone out there is liking my concept and want to see where it's headed.
Very, very cool.
So that's a good thing, but ultimately, that means I'm ultimately just writing right now, trying to hit these deadlines that I had never been under before. But I would like to let you know that Mark Twain may have been writing about this very project of mine when he wrote that truth is stranger than fiction because fiction is obliged to stick to possibilities. Truth in it isn't. Ladies and gentlemen, the debate over what's true and false in literature is never ending, primarily due to the fact that all literature is based on some truth. Like that of a surreptitious military operation, the goal of argumentative writing is to tactically persuade your audience that your ideas are valid beyond the method by which you've chosen to relay your story. The Greek philosopher Aristotle divided the means of persuasion appeals into 3 distinct categories: ethos, pathos, logos. Examples of this are infinite. Leonardo di Ser Piero da Vinci's Codex Atlanticus, George Orwell's 1984, Milton William Cooper's Behold a Pale Horse, Jack Finney's The Body Snatchers, David Seltzer's The Omen, H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds, Thomas Michael Kinley's Schindler's Ark, William Peter Blatty's The Exorcist, Richard Condon's The Manchurian Candidate, Robert Shea and Robert Anton Wilson's The Illuminatus Trilogy, Robert Ludlum's The Bourne Identity, Robert A. Hyland's The Puppet Masters, Jules Gabriel Verne's A Journey to the Center of the Earth, Eric von Dyken's Chariots of the Gods, not to mention both the Writer's Block trilogy and the Conspiracy Odyssey series to which I'm taking the liberty of weighing in. However unquestionably interminable these examples may be, all remain but the tiniest of pebbles dropped haphazardly into a massive basin of still water. Words I liken to keys which unlock the incomprehensible doors of the matrix we were conceived. However, it is a choice the individual must make to read, to absorb, to beware, and to prepare. Please visit my site, www.thewriterofbooks.com, to get yourself an eyeful. I think you won't be disappointed.
AK, this has been an amazing couple hours. I have to get you back on the show because there is still so much we can talk about, and we didn't even get into the paranormal stuff, which is which is a whole new other thing. I mean, well, we barely brushed the surface of the book. I mean, I could sit here, I mean, literally, and just talk hours upon hours with you about this subject, and I hope to get you back on. Maybe sometime later in the summer. When will the new book be coming out? Is there a possible release date on it yet, or?
Well, it's actually going to be out before the end of this year. Hopefully, it's basically before Christmas, hopefully before Black Friday. That's where my publishers is headed. But my duty is to get the book done by September 15th.
Okay.
So basically, my deadline is September 15th, so I'm working very hard on it. But I don't want to rush the project. I've never been under deadlines, but I can't rush the project, or you guys are true seekers out there are not going to get what you deserve in my concept and in my theory.
So, I mean, yeah, so hopefully we can, I would love to get you back on either right before that book drops or just after the book drops, and hopefully I can get my hands on a copy and I can read it a little bit. And we can continue this conversation. I mean, because you're really, I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, you're really one of my favorite guests I've ever had on the show. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
it's been fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Everybody was loving it in the chat room. I want to thank you for coming on. I want to wish you a good night, and hopefully we talk again soon.
Well, definitely. I'm right here for you. Anybody that had me on before, I would love to be on again. It doesn't really matter, because as long as it's a great conversation, but we're talking about things that affect the whole of humanity, I'm with you.
Absolutely, AK. You have a good night, sir, and we will be in touch with you, I'm sure.
All right. Take care. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Bye-bye, AK.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. A.K. Kuykendall, ladies and gentlemen, he is the author of Conspirator's Odyssey. If you are just absolutely enthralled with this show, wherever you're listening out there, go look for this book. I know it's on Amazon. You can find it on his website, www.thewriterofbooks.com. Look into his paranormal novel, too. I've been reading that also. I didn't get as deep into it as I did the Conspirator's Odyssey. The paranormal book is called The Possession. Writer's Block, The Possession. Look into that one too. That one also is a very good read. And I mean, this is a definite book. I mean, it's not only a book, like you said to us when we were on a break. It's not only a book where if you are a true conspiracy theorist, you can get into it, but it's also just a good read. It's a good story. So if you just want to read it for the basis of it being a good story, you're good there. And if you want to read it and kind of read between the lines and see what he's saying, see what he's trying to put out there, I mean, it's an amazing story. It's an amazing new idea to something that we all have a basic theory on. I mean, Doug, we all have theories on what happened in Dealey Plaza and what happened to President Kennedy. And I mean, this is. This is one, even though it's a little different, it's definitely plausible because of everything you see going on within the world today and all these advancements you hear with our military. And and not only that, but I mean, when you think of Gulf War syndrome, and they don't have a cause for it. So I mean, there's a lot of relevance to what he's saying that could possibly be true.
Oh, definitely. And, when he was talking about the first 3 shots fired, everybody turned to look where the shots came from, and all chaos broke loose. So it very easily, I mean, when we talked about it before with past guests, I said there's no way that a shot from behind could make JFK's head do what it did.
No,
it's not possible.
No, I mean,
scientifically, it is impossible.
Yeah, I mean, if it happened, everything we know about science to this day is basically a lie. And for the Warren Commission to put out that because of a back brace it caused a vacuum and made his head go backwards, go back into the left is just Newton must be turning in his grave. I mean, it's force doesn't make something do that. I mean, that's what we were taught. And now you're trying to put out in a report that the ways that everybody learned the common sense ideas of force, well that don't apply here. This is what happened, and people bought it. people still buy it. And I think there's less people who buy it today. I mean, because, there's, with the more and more you hear. But, I mean, we'll never know the true story behind Kennedy and what happened in Dealey Plaza because they won't allow it. There's no way they could allow it. The same thing with 9/11. I do think it's the same thing with 9/11. We'll never know truly what happened in 9/11 because, what do you do then? It's there's no telling what the ramifications would be. And, and he's right. I mean, if something, what are we going to do? Go against the military? Can't do that.
No.
We're going to lose. We'll lose. There's no, we would, we'd be destroyed.
And I think back to, what movie was it? I think it was Men in Black. A lot of times we're told just a small amount of information that the government knows, because they know so much more, but they only release what they think that the general population can handle. And the line that I think of is a person is intelligent, but people in general are stupid, panicky, and over-dramatize everything. So if you are to release what is actually known about certain situations, the population in whole will cause such an eruption that the person in general who's smart enough to look past the chaos can make a difference. It almost hinders that person.
It's it's such an interesting topic, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it again. We're going to try to get AK back on when his next book comes out. The first book, I totally enjoyed reading. I read it. Literally in the hospital, I read it in 2 hours. I pretty much read 3/4 of it in 2 hours.
And I have bought his book, the first one. Which one was it? Conspiracy. The Odyssey book.
Yeah, Conspirator's Odyssey. It is a really good book. I hope you guys will take a look at it. And it's it paints a scary picture, and it could be true. I don't put my opinion. I don't put my opinions out there because I want you guys to kind of make it out. I want you guys to decide for yourselves, but definitely, with Kennedy, most people are in agreement. There's something more to it. This doesn't make sense the way things happened, and hopefully one day we will learn the truth. But someone very interesting told me one day. Somebody told me, well, somebody looked at me with a pen and said, well, the pen is mightier than the sword, and I looked at him and said, well, if the pen's mightier than the sword, why do we need armies?
Very good question.
Why are there armies? So, yeah. Just blown away by AK. Absolutely want to thank AK for coming on. We're going to take a break, folks. We're a little over the top of the hour here. Exactly. That was funny. Oh, my God. Did you hear that?
I did not.
Oh, jeez. Skype's giving us issues tonight. I went to go. I thought I had the outro in there, and the next thing I know, the Periscope commercial. Son of a. Oh my God! Yes, it's getting late.
It is. Clarissa's already gone off to bed because she's still trying to recover from the Eastern time zone back to the Colorado time zone.
We're going to go to a break, folks. When we come back, going to keep this thing going here. If you got any questions or comments about anything we have talked about tonight, give us a call. 860-261-2887 is our phone number. That's 860-261-2887. If you guys are listening on one of the apps out there, come on into our chat room. hazyradio.com. Look for the word chat in the top header of our homepage, or look for the big pink button that says go chat, and come on in and join us. We still got some people here hanging out with us. Want to say hi to Ofu. Yeah. I didn't say hi to him, so I wanted to say hi. And Loopy Darling and Karma's still in there. Becca's still hanging out there with us. Doug and myself are in the chat room. Again, want to say very special thanks to AK. We are going to get him back on the show here sometime later this year because he's just really fun. And he's going to be back on Periscope. I know that. He was booked to come back on Periscope Uncensored here. I don't know exactly when. But we're going to keep this thing rolling when we come back from the break. So stay with us. You're listening to Crossing the Void Radio on the Hazy Radio Network. 16 minutes after the hour, Crossing the Void Radio on the Hazy Radio Network. Thanks once again to A.K. Kuykendall for coming on to the show tonight. And really, really great show. We had a lot of fun. And, yeah, we hope to get him back on really, really soon. Make sure you go check out his website, www.thewriterofbooks.com. This from CNN. 4 people have died, including the suspected shooter, as a result of Wednesday's shooting at Fort Hood. This coming from Lieutenant General Mark A. Miley. 16 people were wounded at the installation. There is no known motive. No indication of terrorism, but they're not ruling it out. The suspected shooter, quote unquote, had behavioral health and mental health issues. What were we just talking about on the show today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coincidence? I think not.
The suspect was engaged by military police before he fatally shot himself in the head. Yeah. So that's the big news right now. That's going on out there. That's on CNN.com. I thought that I'd pass that around because people have been asking in the chat room and talking about it. So I just give you the latest information that we're seeing. Yeah, great. I mean, great show. I mean, with AK, great show. It was, he's a great guest. He really does put the details. Very passionate about it, and I mean, that's like the greatest. That's the greatest guest you can get when they're passionate about what they're talking about. And I mean, you could talk to them all day. You could literally talk to them all day about it. And really, really good stuff. And remember here, coming up at the top of the hour, Grandpa Peter Coyote comes on with the Coyote Medicine Show. He will take flight in your overnight. Grandpa's in the chat room right now. How you doing, Grandpa? Good to see you. Good to see you back. Good to see you. Good to be back to pass the baton off. I usually pass the baton off to Grandpa, and I wasn't here last week, so kind of felt a little weird.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Great stuff going on. But so how's your Final Four bracket?
I have one team in it still.
I know
they're who I selected to win it all.
I know who's not there.
So do I.
Syracuse.
Syracuse got beaten out by Dayton.
But
Providence got taken out as well.
But there is this team there. Forgot. What are they called? Yeah.
Will it be an underdog or an undercat that goes on to win the championship?
There's this team there that I didn't think were going to be there. They're a
little husky.
Yeah, they're a little husky. Let's see, where are they from? I don't remember.
Uranus.
No. They're not from Uranus. Not from Uranus either.
Well, Uranus, that is in Connecticut.
I mean, Uranus needs an exorcism. But yeah, Connecticut is in the Final Four. Yeah, Connecticut's in the Final Four. Well, what else do you what else do you want us to talk about, KK? I mean, come on, we've been talking serious for the last 2 hours. We got to lighten it up.
Yeah, let's see here. Of the Final Four teams, I had picked San Diego State, which they didn't beat Arizona.
Want us to talk about pro wrestling?
I had Louisville actually in the final. I had Louisville in the final because you can never fully count out Rick Pitino lately. He always seems to pull something out of his hat, and he got wiped out by Kentucky, who's still in there, much to the happiness of one of my coworkers who's from Kentucky.
I don't think UConn's going to beat Florida.
I have Florida winning it all.
I don't think UConn's going to beat Florida, even though I said I didn't think they'd make the Final Four, and they did. But it's going to be all about who's peaking and who doesn't get caught up in it. And that's a big place to have a Final Four. Down in that frickin' stadium, holy crap. You could easily get lost, especially when you're playing underneath that monster frickin' screen. Which is I believe where they're playing. They're going to be playing right under that gigantic Jerrytron. And because they're playing down in Jerryland. I don't know if anybody knows that. They're playing down in Jerryland, or what's also known as AT&T Stadium, or what used to be known as Cowboy Stadium, or what used to be known as Jerry World.
They just want to see it on that huge high-def TV.
I wouldn't want to play under that thing. I mean, my God. You frickin' look up, and it's like you're looking at something from 2001: A Space Odyssey. The monolith is on top of you. It's like, my God. Talk about scary. Ugh.
Yeah, you just better hope that those cables can keep holding for a little bit longer.
And let's see. WrestleMania is this weekend, which I keep getting reminded of.
Yeah.
It is funny. It is funny though. You got to give it to you got to give it to them for this. The three biggest sporting events, if you want to put them into a sporting event, I kind of do. The three biggest sporting events of the year: Super Bowl, NCAA tournament, WrestleMania. They really are. Everybody goes WrestleMania, but they're like, "What are you talking about? Look at where WrestleMania is held." I mean, look at the money the thing generates when WrestleMania is brought to a city.
And the first thing you think of when anybody mentions wrestling is WrestleMania. You think of that before the Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, or whatever else they may have nowadays.
Yep. And we got a caller on the line. Area, let's see, 386 area code. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Welcome to Crossing the Void Radio.
Will, calling from Florida. Take a wild guess.
Oh, God.
Yeah, hint. KK.
Oh, God. Can I hang up now? No, I'm kidding. What's up, KK? How you doing?
Doing terrific. Just sitting back, trying to process all that divergent information that what was his name?
AK.
That he was putting out there. A lot of stuff. Well educated man.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's he's very interesting. He is a very the theories behind his book are very interesting. The book is very good. I mean, I would tell anybody to read his book just if you want a good story. I mean, the story within the book is just very good. Mm-hmm. It does jump around in a timeline a little bit. It doesn't go on a timeline. You're jumping around at different dates, but you can easily get caught up in his book. I mean, like I said, I read 3/4 of it in 2 hours.
Mm-hmm. I especially love the fact that it's like he can work as much fiction, as much reality into it as he wants to, and get away with it because the book is a work of fiction.
Yep. Well, and I mean that's the way they gotta, that's the way many will write works like that, because you just can't come out and say those certain things because somebody will pay attention.
Sure.
And you look at this show. I mean, there have been weird occurrences on this show that we can't explain.
Heard some of them, yes.
Yeah, and so you have to. I understand what he's saying is you have to kind of make it. You have to kind of joke around with it sometimes a little bit and stuff because you don't want to be taken too seriously. Because when you're taken too seriously, you see what happens.
Well, sometimes if you joke around too much, they think that you're trying to be serious too. So that's a two-edged sword.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it can be a double-edged sword, and but I mean, it's the whole thing behind the Kennedy assassination has taken on a life of itself because they haven't told the truth and they never will.
No.
We're never, nobody will ever fully know what happened there. Nobody will. I am fully confident of that. That they will never let it. Maybe, maybe I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 600 years from now, if this country doesn't stand anymore, and people are coming back to see what kind of, what kind of society we were, maybe somebody will stumble on, what happened. It'll be long after all of us are gone. And
supposedly there's some kind of secret report or papers or something that they were going to release 50 years after the fact, and I think it's been a little more than that, and I'm still waiting.
Oh no, now it's they've it was supposed to come out 20. I can't remember. The original date was 20. I want to say like 2040 or something like that. There was supposed to, or 20. It could be later than that. But it was definitely within my generation. It was within my generation's time. Now that date, from what I've heard, has been pushed up to something like 2279.
Oh yeah. Good luck hearing that one. Then.
Yeah, and I mean, and the biggest thing is, the biggest reason why is there is still interest in wanting to know what exactly happened. And there's, and in 2279, if this country still exists, like many empires rise and fall. I mean, there's a very good chance that that the United States will not exist as we know it, at that point in time. But if it does exist, there's still going to be interest in what happened, so many centuries ago, because you're not telling the truth. So when it's brought up again, people even then are going to go, well, why don't you just tell us what exactly happened, what really happened? And then they'll move the date up to 2372.
The hardest thing about full disclosure for the government is, first thing they have to do is admit that they deliberately misled the public first. I don't think they have the will to do that.
Well, if you do that, then everything. I mean, if you do believe in this globalist agenda, everything that they're doing then will basically collapse, because nobody. I believe nobody will trust anything. And that'll truly be the point where nobody will trust anything that its government tells them. Right now, there's many people brainwashed. I mean, people are too caught up in what's going on in Congress and what's, and the bickering and everything and being on one side or the other. I mean, look at something like the gun debate. Look at how heated the gun debate had become. I mean, if you look at Facebook, I mean, you can see that people are doing the exact same thing, that Congress is doing. They're insulting each other. Right. Well, if you believe this, you're stupid. If you believe this, you're an idiot. If you believe this, you're a schmuck.
And if you don't believe this, we can go it that way too.
Yeah, and I mean, and then it'll get even more hot. They even get more heated, because then it starts, well, if you're a Democrat, you're a traitor. A.k.a. Sarah Palin. Right. Yes, Sarah Palin said that. You can actually go back and look for that, because I actually listened to it when she said it, and my jaw dropped, and I said, I'm never voting for... I literally said right there, even though I didn't really like Obama, I wasn't really voting for... I wasn't leaning Obama at that time. When I heard her say that, I went, you know what? I don't want this woman anywhere near the presidency. So I mean, and she did say that. You can look that up, but I mean, that's. To
spit out the last one, because I couldn't bring myself to vote for either Obama second time or Mitt.
Right. Yeah, and it's and
none of the alternates were really viable either.
No, and it gets tough, and I mean, but that's not the way. To deal with problems. The way to deal with problems is not saying, well, if you believe in this, you're a traitor and you should go here or there. It's like, no. You know, the biggest problem this country has right now is we don't know enough about what's going on with this country.
Exactly.
That's the biggest problem. We won't listen. We are so numbed by everything that we hear and so numbed by everything that we see that people don't want to watch the news. People don't want to listen. Everybody you ever listen to say, "Oh, I don't even listen to that stuff. I don't want to hear it. I don't even want to hear it." And that's how things like House Resolution 368 get passed. And if you guys don't know what House Resolution 368 is, I actually saw this when they did it when it was brought up on CNN. House Resolution, when all this thing was going on with the freezing of the government and the shutdown of the government, there were some there were amendments that were passed secretly. And House Resolution 368 was an amendment that basically said the only person who could bring a bill to the table to stop the government shutdown was basically the Republican House Majority Leader, which is Eric Cantor. He is the only one who can do it. And that bill passed. It was brought up to Congress. It was brought up to the chair. What is House Resolution 368? The person tried to demand a vote, which is in his right, which is in the congressman's right. I wish I could remember the congressman who did it. It's just in the congressman's right, and the chair kept saying no. And it's in the congressman's right to bring up a demand for a vote on it to stop the shutdown. And then he brought it up. What is House Resolution 368? And the chair kind of was trying to look like he was trying to kind of spin around the subject. And finally, he just put it on a big easel and put it there and said, "What the heck is this?" It was voted on secretly. It didn't come to the full to the full body of the House. And you know, this is the kind of stuff, because we don't pay attention, that gets passed. Basically, what they did is they basically took the democratic process, those gears, that is the democratic process, and shoved an iron bar into it.
Seems like I remember it was either last week or the weekend before. Supposedly the House was supposed to be in recess, but basically it's like a few members showed up in there. They put a resolution on there, had a voice vote, and then it got passed because majority of the people there voted for it. Motion carried. No, vote names. I forget what it was, but whatever it was, it got passed secretly as well.
Well, that's the way things happen. They're voted on in bodies, and this is why the biggest problem right now today is that nobody listens. Nobody is listening. Nobody is actually saying anything. People are like, well, my voice don't count. Hell, your voice don't count. Everybody's voice counts. That's, when we go to those polls in November, that's how we are the ultimate voice. We are the ultimate vote. If we don't like what they're doing, we can change it. It's just the fact nobody is paying enough attention to change it. So they go into the voting box and they look at the names and go, "Oh, I know that name. I'll click on that one."
Right. And
we go right through it again. And we have done this now we have been in this cycle for 20, 30 years. And
that's probably the one thing that kills us more often than not, because there's always the resolution, let's throw the rascals out. But the main problem is, it's like, well, all the other guys are rascals, but my rascal's okay. So we'll, excuse me, so we'll keep him. And of course, every area does that, it seems like, so we tend to keep what we already got, and nothing much changes.
Well, that's because you hear the votes, and then, November's a long way off. And people tend to forget things. Now what you're going to start seeing is people, I can guarantee you, things will start happening that the people want to get through. This is when they'll start happening. Like, you'll get things like, let's see, you'll get, let me think, tax reimbursements put back in, and you'll get,
right.
So, oh, well, these people, they changed. They actually are doing good, so let's vote them back in. And then we're going to be back to, oh, well, if you don't get this done, I'm shutting down the government. It's just a never-ending cycle, and until the American people wake up and start to change it. And if you listen to people, like AK or Dr. Drake and Dr. Truth, we're just on this downward spiral that we're not going to be able to stop now. There's nothing we can do. There's too many chess pieces that are in place.
Right.
And no, and I mean, unless we do listen and we radically change things, meaning basically tell every congressman, guess what? I don't care if you're an incumbent. I don't care if you're Democrat. I don't care if you're Republican. If you're any of those, if you're the donkey or if you're the elephant or if you're sitting in one of those seats, guess what? You're not going back. So don't even run. Because we're not going to vote. We're not going to vote for you. Then I think you'll get something going on. But there's a lot of things, and I actually told one of my senators this when I talked to him. I actually got a chance to talk to one of them one day, and I told him, if you guys are so sure that you're doing the right thing, if you're so positive, the course that this country should be on, like you're saying all the time on the news. Like you're saying all the time, that's all we hear from everybody is, we know, our party knows where the party line is, and I'm doing the Bill Clinton thing now with my thumb just because it's like, I don't know. I must be channeling my inner Bubba. But I mean, everyone says, we know the right thing, and Nancy Pelosi says, we know the right track, and John Boehner says, we know the right track, and Eric Cantor says, we know the right track, the Tea Party knows the right track, and they're saying, well, if you all know the right track, let's do this. This is my idea. One of you, I don't care which one does it, one of you put in a bill that basically gives us the right, the people, the states, the people who elected you into office, it gives us the right for a federal recall. Boy, did he shut up quick. And I'm not talking about KK, I'm talking about the center.
Yeah, I
why
was
not?
just thinking there actually are a handful of states which do have the authority to do recalls.
Well, they have recalls for right.
Not all of them have it.
Right. They but I'm talking, let's set up a constitutional amendment where recall can go all the way to the president. All of them.
Don't actually vote for the president. The Electoral College does that, so I'm not sure that would actually work, since if you can't vote for him, it seems like you can't do a recall vote in order to take him out. A technicality that's kind of important.
Well, it is a technicality, but in order for those technically for those, and I know it's not completely true, there are technical issues, but in order for those Electoral College votes to be cast, it has to still go by the popular vote. And now the Electoral College votes don't have to go all to one person. They don't have to. But in most cases, with the popular vote, that's where the Electoral College votes go. I think the Electoral College is a sham. I think it should be by popular vote. But I think recalls, and I don't really know about the president, because you can't. Everybody blames the president, I think, because he's the figurehead. He's the top guy. You're going to blame the president. I think the recall.
Scapegoat.
Yeah, he's the easiest scapegoat in the room. Whether he's doing a good job or a bad job, he's still the easiest scapegoat in the room. I think.
When you start making executive order after executive order, I don't know.
Well, no, I'm not saying that he's doing a good job. But what I mean is the president is an easy scapegoat. And I'm not talking about the current president. I'm talking about whoever is sitting there.
Right.
Where I think the recalls are more important, where I think this idea of recall is more important, especially federally, is within Congress. Because if Congress can start doing their act, then it doesn't put whoever is sitting within that seat, or whoever has the title of President of the United States, it doesn't put them in positions where they have to sign executive order after executive order after executive order. Again, I'm not saying that I support what the president's doing. I'm just saying that right now the system is broken the way that it's the way that it's set up. Like they're not working together. It's basically, let's see what we can do to screw the other one. And I don't care who's sitting in that presidential seat, whether it's Democrat or Republican, whether you agree with them or you don't, whether you like them or you don't like them. The president is an easy scapegoat because he's the one who you always see. He's the one you always hear from. He's the one who's sitting basically at the top of the hill. Where I think right now, even though I don't think the current president is doing a very good job, I think the bigger problem we have right now is Congress, because Congress is basically broke. Congress is broken. Congress is not working. It hasn't worked for 20 years.
As much as it is the procedure.
Yeah. Yeah, Congress hasn't worked for 20 years, and it's time to get term limits in. I'm just going on a political rant here, which we usually don't do on this show, but but it's time for us to get It's time for us to get term limits in. No more 30-year politicians. It doesn't work anymore. It's time for campaign finance reform to go into effect. It's time for all this stuff to go into effect. And the biggest thing, it's time for the American people to wake up and see who they're actually putting into these seats. Actually look at the people. A perfect example was Joe Lieberman here in Connecticut. He started out being a great senator. He actually did a lot of great things for us. Then, because he lost in a primary, he all of a sudden starts showing his true colors. And, you see that it's not about doing the right thing for the people of Connecticut. It's about, what am I going to do to put my butt back into my seat? And you learn his true colors. He lasted one more term. People got fooled. They put him in there for one more term, and he started to show his true colors, did whatever he wanted to. He threatened to go with one party over another. He started to play games, and Connecticut said no. We've had enough with this, and he knew he wasn't going to be reelected. There was no way. So you kind of saw his true colors a little bit. Same thing with Chris Dodd. Chris Dodd with SOPA. You kind of saw his, with I don't know if you guys remember SOPA from years ago, but it was going to cause holy havoc with copyright laws and everything like that. SOPA was basically written by the movie industry, and its spearhead was Chris Dodd. And Chris Dodd didn't think it was a big deal. He couldn't understand why everybody was fighting and pissing and moaning because of SOPA. He couldn't understand it. Well, it's basically because what you basically said in that bill is that if you're on YouTube and you hum a song, say you're one of the YouTube, say you're a YouTube person. I have a channel on YouTube. If you're on there and you hum a song, well, if it's a copywritten song, and you hummed a few bars of it, you didn't even realize you did it. Well, they can actually charge you, and you could be put into jail. That was the problem with SOPA. That's why everybody rose against SOPA.
That is ridiculous.
There are laws still trying to be passed like that, and it's they're not, it's just time. It's time for people to wake up, and that's what proved to me that the people still have a voice, because SOPA, there were 8 million people who rose up and said, "You pass this, we ain't voting for you." Plain and simple. Hearing a couple 100,000 say that, okay, no big deal to them. You hear 8 million. When you start getting into the millions, that begins to hurt, and that's why when I saw that and I realized the minute that started to happen, and they started to realize there's so many people against this bill, and they basically. And they basically, took it off the table and buried it because of all this, because they realized the American people just were not going to deal with this. That's when I realized the American people still have a voice. So, imagine if that was happening with all this other stuff. Imagine if those 8 million spoke up when the government shutdown was about to happen, and we told them, you either get this done or we don't vote for you. It's the same way. If the American people just knew if the American people knew and they paid attention to what was going on all the time, like they did with that bill, it's like this song by Bon Jovi says. It's called "I Believe," and there's one line in there says, I believe with every breath I breathe, you could turn a whisper to a scream. Well, one person with a whisper who spreads the word, or you do what that one person does, that whisper very quickly turns into a scream. And trust me, they will hear you. And I think that's what we have to get back to. We have to start letting our voices be heard.
Yeah. One issue that's really bugging me quite a lot, and it's relevant since you guys are internet broadcasters, is the White House's plan of surrendering control of the internet to somebody not the United States. That just looks like a disaster waiting to happen.
I don't know how we do that, because the internet is really, the United States doesn't hold domain over the internet. Doesn't hold domain over the world.
Talking about a presidential kill switch anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't hold. The United States or no one country holds domain over the World Wide Web. So that would be hard to do. I know there's.
All I can say is there's an awful lot of people, a lot more knowledgeable on the subject, that show a lot of concern about it in their right. So I think it's at least worth listening to.
Well, I know there's a lot of talk about somehow regulating it. And, being able to regulate it, being able to regulate what goes on and off it, basically kind of, I have heard, like, tightening the grips, because with the internet, I mean, especially, like, with the medium we have here, internet radio, we can say and do anything we want. Right. I mean, we can, we don't, even though we deal with FCC licenses here, we're not governed by the FCC like terrestrial radio is.
Yeah. I'm thinking the concerns are more like the country of Egypt that, for instance, shut down Facebook and Twitter because people were using that in order to coordinate their protests and such like that.
Well, they shut down Facebook. Well, yeah, they shut down Facebook and Twitter, but there was still things getting out. There were still.
But I think that's a kind of control and principles that they're concerned about in the United States and so forth. Somebody says something that somebody doesn't like, they say, "Fine, we'll just shut down your server or what have you."
Oh well, yeah, China does. Yeah, China does the same thing.
And the idea that some place like China might decide, well, if you don't take these places off the air, then we're going to start calling in some of your debts, that kind of stuff. That's the part that kind of scares me a little.
Yeah, I could understand that. I mean, I think we owe too much to China. That could, and I think some of the trade issues and stuff and some of the stuff China's getting away with is because of that. Because they're pulling that card on us. Yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to say what will happen in the future. I mean, I know if we don't speak up as a people, then all this stuff could very easily come true. All this stuff could very easily come to fruition. But I think if we're, I think if we're more vocal, even though they may continue to try to do it, it's going to become harder to do it because with more people paying attention, more than likely something is going to be discovered.
Right.
And and I mean that's all I really hope for is that just people will open their eyes and just pay attention more. And because I have two 20-month-old nephews, and I mean I'm scared of the world that we're going to leave. I mean, even from my youth, you can see things are different. Mm-hmm. I mean, the freedoms that I knew and that I saw back as a kid in the 80s are completely different now to the 40-year-old man who sees the world today. So I'm scared to see what could be when my 20-month-old twin nephews are my age.
I just think about all this crazy debt that our grandchildren are going to get stuck with.
Well, I mean, we get stuck with it. We get stuck with things too. I mean, you got to remember we are. My generation has a major issue because, well, there are a lot more baby boomers than us. So my generation is trying to figure out, and this was a problem they knew was going to come. This wasn't something, I mean, you know, when the World War II, when the Greatest Generation came home and they had all these huge families, you know, seven kids, 8 kids, and then those kids only had one or two children. Some of them didn't have any children. Obviously, there was going to be a problem. You know, we weren't going to be able to pay into the Social Security system the way they did, so obviously there was going to be a problem.
Right.
It was something that they knew was going to come. I think what kind of gets me is that they kept pushing it off, and now we're here with the problem because the baby boomers are starting to retire. And there's no way my generation is going to be able to keep up. So I'm kind of scared. So what I'm scared of is for my generation, because my generation is having less kids. And so it's like, and now with nothing that's going to be left there's really going to be nothing left for my generation. What is my generation going to do? And it doesn't seem like everybody, and they're still doing the same thing. They're pushing it off to the side.
Exactly.
You know, and
yeah. It's broken that need to get fixed.
Yeah.
But the fixes are, frankly, they're going to be rough.
No, yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, it's going to be, you know, there's got to be some tough changes that have to be made. But again, the first thing that has to be done is the people have to wake up.
Yeah.
The people have to open their eyes and see that these changes have to start being made. And what that starts with is not letting, you know, Congress and not letting the people in charge get away with what they're doing. You know, is speaking up and letting your congressmen and your senators know, hey, I don't know what hey, you know, you keep saying that everybody's in support of this, and I want to tell you I'm not. You know, I mean, we have to let them know, and that's how you influence what they do. But anyways, KK, we're running out of time. I gotta let you go.
About to say that. Time to go.
Yeah.
Appreciate. Talk at you later.
Absolutely. Thank you for calling in. We'll talk to you again. Yeah, I don't like going on political rants, but oh well.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It happens.
It happens every once in a while. We allow it every once in a while. But yeah, I said Rod Black from Jet Black Stare was coming in July. I lied. He's coming this month. I think he's coming in April.
Yeah, he is scheduled for, I believe, the 23rd.
Right. So yeah, he's coming in April. So yeah, so I kind of got that wrong on the Facebook page. That's going to be a fun show too. We're going to have a lot of fun with that show. A lot of great stuff tonight. You know,
fantastic show.
Yeah, it was a fun show. We had a lot of fun. Again, Grandpa Peter Coyote takes over in about 7 minutes here, 6 minutes. With the Coyote Medicine Show, I'll get it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does a great show too, and there's a lot of great shows coming up. Like I said, make sure you check out Animazing Radio. Coming up here this Sunday is the premiere at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. His first guest is going to be Tia Ballard. Of course, this week is Periscope Uncensored. I'm not sure who her guest is.
Her Periscope Uncensored guest this week is Brad Steiger.
Oh, Brad Steiger.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry, didn't mean to yawn in your face. Yeah.
That's okay. Next time I just slap it.
Yeah, Brad Steiger will be her guest on Friday there, so hopefully you guys will check that out. Of course, after Backstage, which comes on at 8 p.m. Eastern. Next week, a whole bunch of new shows starting to roll out. Paranormal Preview on Tuesday. The Broader View moves to Tuesday. Sharita Star comes on Monday. A lot of great stuff coming up. And,
our guest next week is Susie Lewis.
Yeah, Susie. I forgot about that. Yeah, our guest next week is Susie Lewis. We're going to be talking about the darker side of some paranormal stuff. We're going to get into probably demonology, Satanism, the occult, everything like that. So it's definitely not a show if you have little kids who watch. Definitely not a show to listen into. Probably there's
Viewer discretion is advised.
Yeah, huge parental discretion on that show because you're not really sure where exactly we're going to head in that show. So, if you got little kids around, make sure they don't listen, especially if they're prone to nightmares and they just watch Nightmare on Elm Street. So, so you don't want to do that. But, again, thanks a lot to you guys for listening. A big thanks to A.K. Kuykendall for coming on. Remember, to check him out, his website is www.thewriterofbooks.com. Make sure you go check us out on our Facebook page, facebook.com/CrossingTheVoidRadio. You can also find us on Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter at CTVR on HeyZ. You can also find me if you just kind of want to see what I'm doing over there. I got a Twitter account myself at ScottH1976. And if you want to, of course, if you want to check us out, if you want to send us a line, if you want to send us an email, you can head over to CrossingTheVoidRadio.com, and there's a little email tab there, and and all of our contacts are actually over on a contacts page over there, so you can contact either one of us.
And we love hearing from you. If you have ideas for future guests that you'd like us to try to get on the show, or ideas of topics you want to hear us talk about during the show, drop us a line, either Facebook page, Facebook/CrossingTheVoidRadio, or on CrossingTheVoidRadio.com, and send us the emails. Also, check out the Animazing Radio Facebook page, and on Twitter you can follow at Animazing Radio. We'll be having updates of upcoming guests, future contests, giveaways, and all that other fun stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got a lot of stuff coming up in the next few weeks here, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So, again, thanks you guys for listening tonight. We're going to be turning it over to Grandpa Peter Coyote here in a few minutes with the Coyote Medicine Show. It has been a blast, but it's time for us to get our beauty sleep. And for everybody involved across the void, thank you guys for listening. Again, I can't tell you enough. Without you guys, we wouldn't be here, and Hazy Radio wouldn't be here. So, never think you guys are, I hope you guys realize how important you guys are and how much we thank you guys for listening in every week.
Because we want this show to be as much yours as it is ours.
Absolutely. And folks, until next week, when we convene again with Susie Lewis, remember, folks, the rules of this world don't always apply when crossing the void. For Lexi, Clarissa, Doug, and myself, we'll see you guys next week. Adios. Crossing the Void Radio is a subsidiary of Pukwudgie Media in association with the HeyZ Radio Network.
Pukwudgie.